All right, welcome to Signpost Live Weekly, Monday, November 11th, 2024. We have a special edition with a special guest, Bahiah, who will be doing Projector Focus. So we're starting an hour early today to have this, our first time ever, this sort of extra segment. And I'm excited to have you on, Bahiah. We've been talking about it for a while now, and I'm happy to have you. Thanks for joining.
Oh, thank you, Jonah. I'm
Yeah.
really excited. Yeah, we had a few, we tried, and then we had travel, then we canceled. So I've been hanging out with Taylor Swift for a few months now. So I had time to
Well,
get
yeah, I saw your thread with Richard. I was tuning in, I was checking in every once in a while. But yeah, and I'm happy to lay back if you want to lead things, if you want my involvement at all or to chat about anything. Of course, I'm here for that.
yes.
Since we haven't been doing this for a while, we might have sort of a lower turnout this time. I mean, it kind of remains to be seen. Also, basically, for those who don't know, what we did was for a while we used to have like all different, and maybe I didn't even tell you this, Bahia. We used to have all different days, and we'd have like an hour on Tuesday and an hour on Wednesday and an hour on Thursday, and we just combined them all together into Mondays. And so we've been kind of testing that out and seeing how that's working. And I think once it does build up, it'll be nice because it will allow people to sort of drop in, drop out during that chunk of time, and then just sort of have everything. They'll just kind of know, like, okay, Monday night we have it, and if they miss it, no big deal. We just record the whole thing, upload the whole thing, and then they sort of can skip through to what segment they want. So what we've been doing is having Richard Corbett do a segment, then Richard and Brandy do a segment, then I do a segment, then I do another segment, and it's been kind of like that. So, but we're still experimenting with it, and yeah, all this to say, I'm not sure what turnout we're going to get, but this is all recorded and shared, and I know that a lot of people catch up on it as well. So yeah, I'm going to mute my mic for now, but I'm here if you want my participation at all. Just like let me know or just pull me in. I'm happy to chat, and thank you so much for
Absolutely.
joining. I'm so excited, and we need more projector content. I'm really always like on Signpost. I'm
Really?
always like looking at what we're doing. Yeah, we really do. We don't have. If you look at it, it's a manifester, a manifesting generator, and a generator are the people that are mostly doing the
Oh
content right
my
now.
God. Okay.
So yeah, so your voice is very welcome. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
That's a great recognition. We'll get you more projectors and maybe one reflector. I mean, who knows?
We every now and then we'll get Roger Campbell on. He used to be a little more active, and then we have a few others. We also have Hanifa. She's pretty active on the radio programs. So if you tune in, she'll often chime in and kind of jump in ad hoc on the radio. And then, of course, we have Marissa Chagaleaf, who's also a reflector. So we have three reflectors. And, Marissa is pretty involved in some of the conversations, like anything around personality typology, she jumps in on and some of the stuff. So, yeah, but we definitely need, I think it's just that we're still so young. We've only been doing this for a year, and it's like a
Yeah.
year sounds like a long time, but it's actually not. Like actually, when you're trying to get something going and trying to get people to sort of consistently make it a part of their lives, we're very much in this fledgling phase. But we do
Yeah.
have some really dedicated people. Marissa's been here from the beginning. I mean, I think most of us have been here from the beginning. It's kind of like this core crew. Hanifa has been here from the beginning, which is so great. So we've had at least two reflectors that are just like diehards from the beginning, which is awesome. But yeah, need more projector voices, and we also just it's just cool to. I love the name you came up with. Projector Focus. It's like this is what we need. So tell me about it. So what is Projector Focus? I'll hand it over to you now, please.
Thank you. Thank you. And so I have a bit of a structure of how I want to present this based on, Taylor Swift's chart, but you're welcome. If you have anything to add, you're welcome because your perspective is really cool. And I also have her chart. Is there a way to post it for people to see or later, or what's the
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you permission to share if it's a graphic, or you can send it to me. Either way, I think if I make you the host, you should be able to share. You should just try sharing it because I actually found a setting in Zoom that allows anyone to share the screen, and I turned it on. So you should see if you can share your screen.
thing? Let me share her
Yeah.
chart. I'm afraid those on Instagram Live, I cannot share the chart, but that's already something here. Okay, let me drop it here. There you go. I dropped it in the comments, so maybe while I talk, you can because I'm not so good with with technology. I will
Yeah,
just
yeah. I'll throw it up right now. I'll put it. I mean, I'll throw
oh,
it.
I'm just
I'll throw it
please
on right now. Okay, 1 second here. And I see we're joined by Kalima. Good to see you, Kalima. This is for those who are at HDHD this year. Kalima was super helpful as the greeter coordinator. Hey, and also just kind of general everything woman doing AV and all sorts of stuff, and it was super helpful. And then she was just in Ibiza as the production coordinator for 4% the Experiment, the human design doc. So
he's
we're
awesome. Okie dokie.
yeah, so doing a lot there. Yeah, let me share the screen here. Let me get it going. There we go.
Can have
Okay, and so this is going to be for Taylor Swift's. There is a little controversy around the time, right? This is sort of one of the times that has her as a projector, I'm
yes,
guessing. Okay,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
Most celebrities, we don't exactly know. I mean, it's yeah.
Well, yeah, I just remember when I looked into Taylor Swift, a lot of people had her as a projector, but then there's an alternate time and also an alternate birthplace. She not only has two possible times, but two places, and that one was confirmed by a biographer that had her as a manifestor later in the day. But we can say this is the one that you feel is the correct one for her, right?
Okay, okay.
I'm asking, right? This is the one that you kind of have the sense that this is the one that really fits for her.
Made sense. A lot of
Okay.
things made sense. It's true that at first, when you look at her, she has a lot of leadership qualities and she's really sort of in the spotlight. But then it could also work for her in the sense that she's a 5-1. She has gate 45. So there's a lot of things that also could, make sense with this chart. But it's an interesting intellectual exercise to imagine the same person with two different types and profiles and God knows. Let's take this one as an example and yeah. Anyways, I have a bit of a structure that's the same one that I usually use for readings, which is looking at her the fact that she's a projector, she's planic, then looking at her centers, open and defined, and then her main channels, definition, some main gates, her 5-1 profile, obviously, and if we have time, her incarnation cross, which is confrontation. Good. If you ever want to chime in, please do. So one thing that really struck my attention with her, and I'm sorry, English is not my first language. And sometimes when I get a bit nervous, I think you'll understand. I have a bit of a French accent. So one thing that's really struck me about Taylor is the fact that she's getting so much recognition, right? And her huge success, because a lot of us think, well, projectors, maybe we don't have enough energy, we're always tired, we're always waiting for somebody to we're just always waiting, we're always waiting for somebody to come and sort of take us out of invisibility and give us recognition. And she's been starting really young. At the age of 13, she started her really like pursuing music very seriously. And she's getting lots of recognition for songwriting, for performing, for creativity, for the immense discipline she has. And also now she's really a voice of leadership for women. And she has a lot of sort of personal opinions that she's bringing forward. So I think this recognition, I assume, has fed her success, right? The more she leans into what she's recognized for, the more success she gets. And one of the reasons, I know it's a bit controversial because some people are have maybe some sense of criticism of why we do celebrity readings. But I think what's really cool about it is that it's a point of reference we all have. We all know a few things here and there from pop culture about Taylor Swift, Barack Obama, Serena Williams, just a few projectors, right? So that was the main thing for her, was really the what she's recognized for, right? And then the other thing we know is that she's splenic, right? So her splenic authority means that she if she wants to succeed or have an interesting experience, she should really follow her instincts. And the bit that I know about her life, her experience, is that she really it was really a choice of hers, a very personal choice of hers to pursue music, very young, very very strong-minded also about this. And we see also her spleen her willpower center being connected with the channel 4426 and the topic of integrity. So that was really something that for her, like it really came from inside of her. Plus, she's a single definition. So I think if she puts her mind, if she has an instinct about something, she puts her mind to it and her willpower to it, she can go very far. And she has, channel 1858 with the immense discipline and perseverance and just sort of struggling for what she thinks is worth. So it's really, I think that formula for success really works for her and really did. The other thing, if we can look at her, let me look at my notes. Boom, boom, boom. Yes, another thing that I've heard about her, and I watched a few documentaries and YouTube videos about her, is about her, the way she creates her songs. The fact that she has those three defined centers, she's a single definition, and I've heard that she creates the way she creates her song is a very internal process, very individual, and she's really a perfectionist. Like she won't like accept a less than perfect version, and she will keep, going back to the table and working on her songs and even her shows. I don't know if any of you guys have been on any of her shows on her Famous Eras tour. Like the level of perfection, of detail, the creativity, like everything has to be perfect. And that I think is a testament of her design, right? Um, Another thing about her, she's been in the media quite a lot these past years. She started as a kid, and she had this sort of good girl's image, which obviously was curated by the people around her, the adults around her who were her, making choices for her career, her manager, her family, whatnot. And after a while, she started to really use her voice. We can also see, right, she has one, two, three, four, five, she has 6 open centers. So she's very, sorry, my Instagram is blocking. Okay, fine. She's very open to influence as well, right? 6 open centers, that's huge. And the process of deconditioning or really finding what is her and what is not her could have taken some time. We know about the Kanye West incident at the, I had to check that one, at the VMAs, which was, it's a musical, I don't know how you call it. It's an award ceremony where he interrupted her, and he really sort of put her down, and it was her moment to shine, and the guy just sort of came and took away the recognition from her. She had apparently a sexual assault case, 2018. She was pretty much advised not to share her political views for a long time because, we know that can be Kanye. Oh, thanks. Kanye's also a projector. Look at that. Fighting for recognition, huh? So interesting. Oh, I might do it. I might take him next. Thank you. I didn't realize he was. Okay, not our best ambassador, but well. I'll just put on my scientific hat and take him as a study case. Thank you for that. So she's just, oh yeah, the last thing was just sharing her political views. I believe it was also 2018, and there's a YouTube clip where you can see where she's talking about her manager. I think one of them is her dad or her mom, and sort of measuring the impact that this will have if she sort of speaks up for her political views, for her obviously her family's views, and what impact this has on her career. And she's saying, I don't care what's gonna happen, I'm gonna do it anyways. And there's you kind of sort of see a woman coming into herself as well. She's not anymore the little girl, the cute little girl with her country songs or whatnot, but she's really sort of standing for what she believes in. And we look at now her latest tour, her visibility, we also know like financially she is, I have that somewhere, her net worth is 1.1 billion, which is a metric of success in our world. I mean, so the fact that she's like leaning more and more into her design, probably without knowing it has worked for her in terms of success. Let me see. Boom, boom, boom. We can also look at her centers. So she has only 3 defined centers, like I said before, single definition. Willpower defined, spleen defined with 3 channels. That's pretty massive. Root defined as well. I've heard sometimes among projectors that, those of us that have a defined route have more energy, are also more prone to be, athletic, even though Serena Williams doesn't have any. So that's another question, right? But like she has a lot of physical energy, obviously, once you see her on stage and the way she performs and changing outfits and whatnot. Anyways, that was about the route. Let me see where I was at. This, oh, maybe I'll go at the channel so that I'm here. Sorry. Yeah, 1858, the channel of struggle. What's interesting there with the channel of struggle is that in its positive expression, it's you're taking the image away, right? Oh, cool, no worries. There's something about experimenting and finding what is worth fighting for. Maybe a shadow of the this channel can be just fighting at any cost. When there's something to fight for, there's struggle, just jumping in. But then with time, choosing what is worth fighting for, what is linked to my purpose, to the meaning of what I'm here to do, and where am I going to put my energy. And for her, it's very clear, where she decided to put her energy and fight for. Another channel that's interesting to look at is channel of judgment. 1558, 1858. So again, spleen to root, right? That is probably one of the causes for her perfectionism, critical eye for improvement. She's a very, very hard worker. You can imagine also somebody who gets into the celebrity world on a big stage so young, all the sacrifices she must have done. And the last channel, 4426, the one Jonah just mentioned before, super interesting, channel of surrender, with topics of integrity. Also, I think you say a knack for business, for, when something's in integrity, really being able to draw the masses into it and sort of have a monetary outcome of this. With the willpower also, that's aligned to this. So the willpower to do the best of something, maybe a bit of a competitive side as well. 26 being also the channel of the egoist. I think that's how I say in English. So super interesting one. Now about her open centers, obviously projector, open sacral. I was really drawn to the open emotional center as well. So it's interesting because I think one of the reasons, there's a few theories that one of the reasons that for so long she really sort of accepted this good girl image was also wanting to avoid conflict. I have a defined emotional center, so I haven't experienced that, but I see a lot of people with open emotional center that I work with. They're really going to try and sort of not confront things, not say things directly, not try and provoke somebody's anger or intense emotions. So it could be a bit of conflict avoidance that comes from this open center, and just wanting to conform or lay low in order not to have to feel the impact of a conflict on yourself. Imagine somebody's mad at you, somebody's mad at you, there's a conflict, you're going to feel it amplified in your emotional center. So with time, obviously, people learn to use those energies and the open centers. Whether they know about human design or not doesn't matter, but one can assume that she's learned to work with this energy and still stand for herself despite this open emotional center. Another one that is very cool, let me find my piece of paper. 36. Yes. And again, in the open emotional center, gate 36, which is one of my personal favorites, that has to do with crisis and emotional intensity. So also I guess where was this? Yep. The very experiential nature of the emotional center, like sort of experimenting thing and then having crisis and then learning from it. In her life, that's, I mean, from what we know, right, from the media, that also applies to her romantic life. She's known for having, quite a few different partners, sort of her famous partners, love stories, and writing songs about it. So this gate 36 also really sort of thrives on crisis, it's and the ups and downs and kind of the drama of it all. So, yeah, I think it's really reflected here in her gate 36, and then it will connect to 35 and come out in her throat as an expression of what she has gone through. Let me see if there's anything else about emotional center. Then the other thing that maybe is related with her, her romantic life, and the main topic of her songs and her career is love and relationships, right? And we also know with the Eras tour, like I wasn't her fan of hers before, and maybe I'm still not one, but like we all know about these friendship bracelets. And that can also be related to the open G, right? The search for like, am I worthy of love? Who's gonna confirm that I'm lovable? Always looking for yourself outside and in others, and looking for love, looking for your identity, for your directions, for your purpose. You're gonna this open G, one can assume that had a big influence also in her life, in her career, and the topic of her songs, just experimenting all these things with her open centers, and then sort of processing them or transmuting them, and maybe just universalizing them through her songs, right? Like, I've gone through all of this. This is my personal experience. As a first line, I'm just improving here, but why not? As a first line, I'm gathering all these experience about love, about relationships, about identity, about yeah, about who am I as a young woman nowadays. And then I universalize all of it, and I express it all through my songs with this huge impact that she's had. um what's interesting is her open throat. I think when I started my deep dive into human design, I used to think that whoever is a singer, or a famous journalist, or whoever really uses their voice must have a defined voice. And then I realized, like, Oprah has an undefined or open voice. Here, Taylor Swift has an undefined voice. So I think the way she uses it is really to amplify, is really that one's tricky to put into words, but it's not we don't necessarily need to have a defined voice for it to be powerful. Um, the voice is one of the most fascinating centers, obviously. It's one of the most important in human design, because that's how we communicate and that's how we manifest, and it's like really the the center of creation. I remember when I was studying with Karen Curry Parker, she always said, like, getting the energy to the voice is the name of the game. Like, that's the one important thing you want to go do if you want the energy to flow in your system, is really getting it to the voice. Finding someone who can like hook up those channels with you. Even when you have a team, you always need the energy to go to the voice. So open throat. The one gate she has, though, gate 45, is also in her incarnation cross. And that's a super important one. I found it under different names. One of it being king, the king or the queen, or the gatherer. I also read somewhere that it's also just something very archetypal, with a lot of power. When it's given authority, it has immense power, and I mean that's again obvious in her. With let me see what else I said. Yes, with also an aspect of, with a link to money, right? We can see that if the channel was full, it would link to the ego center. So with also an aspect of managing resources, money, it's also her conscious earth. So this aspect of money and authority, leadership, as the queen, is very important in her profile. I've also read that, like, on some of her tours, she would give huge bonuses to like whoever was in her crew, whether it's like a tech guy, or like I don't know all the people who work on those teams, but she would give like bonuses of $10,000 to people. And that's also probably the part of, and she didn't have to, right? She did it, because she had enough, but she also did it because as a gesture probably of thanks and to support them. And that's also a part of what the queen does in managing resources and money. And also using her voice to influence other, because even though it's It's all undefined. Her voice has immense power when she's using it well and for the things that she's recognized with. I can make a little break if you want to say anything, Jonah.
Yeah, I've just been taking some notes. I mean, it's definitely, I'm liking what you're saying. I guess it is interesting because I do have her alternate body graph, and we did last year we sort of did a comparison, and it was interesting. One of my favorite topics is like what is in the personality crystal versus what is in the body graph. And it gets us thinking about like, someone was born 5 minutes apart from Taylor Swift, whichever date we have, and they're not Taylor Swift. So obviously there's something in her at her stage of her soul's evolution that's ready to go on this world stage and ready to have this effect. And so part of it then raises the question of what is in the body graph. And as you're finding, it's sort of the energy and the information, the energy that she has consistently, like her willpower, the energy to go after what she desires of the ego, the energy to succeed on the material plane. The spleen is extremely materially oriented. I think of the spleen as material, the ajna as mental, and the solar plexus as emotional and even maybe spiritual. So she's very materially oriented. And then also the root, anytime I see the root defined, you were saying how it gives a lot of energy, athleticism. I see it also as the endurance and the ability to fail and try again. And so people that have an undefined root, I say, hey, if you try it out, it doesn't work, try something else. But if they have a defined root, I say, look, if you try it out and it doesn't work, try it again. And if it still doesn't work, try it again. And after 100 times, maybe it'll work, because the defined root is just like ready to just keep trying and failing and trying and failing. And what is this? Trying and failing to succeed on the material plane again and again and again. And not just to succeed financially, but also to succeed in finding purpose, as you mentioned with 2838, and also to succeed in improving and making it better and, perfecting. Now, the interesting thing is the different birth times we have, we actually have, it's very, very similar. Very, very, very similar. So I'm just going to actually share the alternate that we have for a moment, and then we'll go back to the one we're looking at. Here's the alternate, and the only thing I wanted to comment about this, and so this one also, there is compelling evidence this could be accurate. Compelling evidence from a biographer who found, and this is a different birth location and a different birth time. So she has two possible birth locations, two possible birth times. And the one that you have is the one that the human design community has sort of glommed on, because I found so many projectors who are so happy to claim her as a projector, and it could be accurate. This is a manifester. And it is funny that it's very hard to talk about her without talking about her impact. But the only thing I would say is, either way, she's the same personality crystal. Either way, it's the same essence expressing itself. And the only difference to me is when we look at the defined versus the undefined solar plexus in the throat, the lens that I look at this through is energy versus information. Just like you were saying, I was very surprised coming into human design to discover how many singers have undefined throats, Cher, Madonna, and so on. And I have an undefined throat. And then I later, over time, began to understand that when it's undefined, you learn and grow and bring awareness to it, and ultimately you convey more information. Whereas when it's defined, you convey more energy. So what I look for is there a powerful energetic expression versus is there an articulate, not even articulate, but detailed informational expression? And these are subtle differences, I mean, at one level, but they're also core. They're core differences. If you think of, it's almost like wave-particle duality, energy versus information, right? How funny to look at it from that lens. So as an example, I have a defined G center, and people have said, wow, you must really know yourself. I have no idea who I am. I have energy in my G center. I don't have information there. See what I mean? The undefined can bring so much awareness. So anytime I see the undefined center, I say, this is where they're bringing awareness. So she obviously brings a lot of awareness to love and direction and identity and things like that. Is she bringing and conveying a lot of awareness about emotions, or or is she bringing a lot of emotional energy? And you know who I would really love to rectify her chart, if we could actually get to the bottom of it, would be Richard Beaumont, because I hadn't realized this about him, but he watches all of the American Idol and Britain's Got Talent and all of these shows, and he analyzes the body graphs of all of the singers. And he's done this wonderful presentation where he's gone into the details of even the timbre of the voice and pinpointed the difference in the defined and undefined throat and the energetic, how is the throat being defined? Is it coming from the ego versus is it coming from the solar plexus versus, and all of these things. And he's really created his own deep understanding of being able to notice the difference even in sort of the energy versus the informational detail versus all of these things. So I'm going to go back to yours. I guess my only other comment about this that's interesting is that the projector chart has her as a right variable on the design side, and this has her as a much more competitive, not just competitive at the ego level, but splenic tones are very competitive. This has her as a tone 2, and tone 2 is sort of a killer instinct, success-driven, success at any cost, just like go out there and get it, blood in the teeth kind of a person. And so there is compelling evidence for both, but just looking at the chart rectification at the tonal level, she does seem to me possibly a little more left variable, splenic binary killer than right variable ooey gooey feeling. That being said, there are so many similarities that literally everything you said about the channels remains true, because she has all of those channels. So it's not that any of your analysis is not accurate. It's more just that there is this open question, which it would be interesting if someday we discover which it is. But going back to this body graph, it's the same minus those two centers. And then I guess the only other question I would say is 5-1 versus 6-2. I can absolutely see the 5-1 mystique, but I could also see how the 5th and 6th line, despite all of their differences, have certain commonalities. And the interesting thing here is that her 45-5 is the voice of leadership, but the 45-6 is the voice of the outsider. That makes people who are lonely and isolated feel included in the collective. And so both of them have compelling reasons. And so I think, I love this. This is such a fun exploration. And I just wanted to kind of give both of those. I see we're also joined by Monique, who I believe was a part of the previous discussion as well. So, yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, super interesting. It's not the other chart isn't so different, right?
They're so similar. Yeah, they're very similar. Exactly.
Defined emotional center too. But then it would make sense if she's a 6th line, that she's really going through these 3 phases and a distinct, sort of leap between the 1st and 2nd phase, where she really sort of came into herself and projected her voice more in the world. And okay, let's see. That would be interesting to find out she's actually a manifestor. But I like that also. Like doubt energy is very strong in me, and I used to panic when I didn't know, but now I find it super exciting. Like it could be this, but it could be that, and it's like
and it's also a good reminder that manifestors very, very often, more often than not, have projected channels, just as generators more often than not have projected channels. And even looking at Ra, who didn't even have a manifestor channel, he literally only had projected channels, and how much of human design required recognition of Ra for him to have his impact. And how different that is than the direct impact of one of the 4, really only 3 if we exclude the 3420, but there's 4 primary gates of action: 20, 45, 12, and 35. And, Ra had the 20 and the 12, but he didn't have them directly hooked in to motors. So anyway, yeah, it's just I think this is a great topic as well, of the manifestor with the projected channel, in the sense that everything you've said is absolutely accurate of her. Like when you talk about how the 4426 works, yes, it's still going to work that way, regardless of type. I mean, there was a whole period of time in human design before type where that just the understanding of the channel itself was sort of the thing. And then type is a way to sort of shortcut to get to what it's about. But if you look at a manifestor like Ra, who only had projected channels, and then you're kind of like, okay, this is like all these projected channels make up a manifestor. Okay, sure, but he needed a lot of recognition. And if people didn't recognize him, they just said, who's this weird competitive survivalist freak guy? Get him out of here, you know? So it's interesting to see that.
True, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much. Fascinating, fascinating. My God, so many rabbit holes. I also got super interested when you said the difference between information and energy, and I think somebody in the comments also mentioned that. Well, I wonder what's the way to really just by observation or by being in somebody's aura, how can we feel the difference? I'm gonna start noticing in myself to see what's the, yeah, cool, cool, cool. Let me see what else I had prepared. Well, now I'm confused because I'm like, is she a 6'2" or is she a 5'1"? So if she were a 5'1", let's play with this hypothesis because it's all hypothesis anyways, and it's all a game anyways. If she's a 5'1", there's definitely no, I put that somewhere else. I'm getting confused in my notes. Yeah. Well, there's definitely the first line, like really wanting to get foundational knowledge, getting really yeah, deep foundation in her art. And then the fifth line of, the mystique, the charm, but also the polarization, right? It's like you hate her, you love her, you project in her things that belong to you, right? Who can truly know her and truly get to the bottom of who she is. Also going through also the seductiveness of the fifth line, that sort of draws you into their aura. Could also have played a factor in her multiple relationships and also the betrayals that came with it. I love the idea that she's a fifth line. I think it's just so fascinating. If in fact that's what she is. Single definition, I think that's really cool as well. Single definitions, not in my understanding, just being super independent, not really needing anybody else. Sort of as a projector, I always say like we need our right people. That's so key for us. But also as a single definition, you don't need people. You don't sort of, and plus define spleen, right? You don't sort of become codependent with people. So also, in relationships at some point, if things don't work as a single definition, like you don't need to stay around too long. It's like I don't fundamentally need you to survive. Like I'm a whole being. Like the information just goes through, everything flows pretty nicely there. So yeah, just feeling complete by herself, right? Let me see what else I haven't said. Yes, then the incarnation cross of left angle cross of confrontation. I didn't check, Jonah, if in the chart you pointed out she would also have had the same. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
I
she would just be the 6'2", because the other time is just a few hours later. So it would just be a
okay.
few hours in the
There you
same
go.
day. And it's actually in the same time zone, so even the location doesn't really
Oh
matter.
wow.
So it's just a few hours later, the same day, it changes to manifestor 6'2", but it's still cross of confrontation. So either way, and
Oh,
also still single definition, still
yep.
defined spleen, everything. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So yeah, still left angle cross of confrontation. Um, which I wrote on a paper that I put somewhere that I lost. Let me see where. Oh, there you go. Sorry. My creation process is very chaotic. So, yes, left angle cross of confrontation, a transpersonal purpose, and also as a transpersonal purpose, standing for others and championing them and serving them. Which, from what I heard, also the way she really works for her team, the way she is for her fans really is a testament of that. And also her values. She's really become quite an icon amongst young women, amongst people with a certain type of, political and social values. And very important also in this incarnation cross, the use of her willpower and strength. And once she really came into herself, whether as a fifth line or a sixth line, we still don't know, then her influence just exploded. I mean, I read that she is again, in terms of financial fortune, which is an important metric in our world, whether we like it or not, a net worth of 1.1 billion, you know, and just everybody, like, even if you don't like her, even if you don't know what her songs are, I'm sure you've heard some of them, right? She was on the cover of Times Magazine. I mean, the day she the day she sort of made public her political views, there was, I don't know how many new voter registrations in 24 hours, you know, 200,000, 500,000, something absolutely absolutely massive. So that's pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what I wanted to say about Taylor Swift. So being born in 89, right? She's now 34 years old. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how she evolves, how she impacts people, how what her influence is in the world. I'm always curious, you know, as a projector, sometimes, I mean, I often also give sessions to projectors, and we have this myth that, oh, we're not going to be successful. Life's so hard. I'm a projector. I'm always going to be tired. And I think it's really interesting to be like, no, look at her. Look at Serena Williams. Look at Barack Obama. Look at, you know, like they got something right that we didn't. And they didn't even know of human design. That's also very humbling for me. Like, there's people who don't know their design. I doubt they had a human design reading, and they still found a way to really lean into who they are and sort of make the best out of their experiences. So yeah, that was the first projector focus. I am done. Any comments, questions, please share.
I love it so much, and yeah, anyone who's tuned in, please. If I know Monique is a projector, but of course anyone's welcome to comment. Nancy, Kalima, anyone who'd like to. But that was so cool, and I love this, and I hope we can keep it going because. I first of all, like you said earlier, there can be question. You know, why do we look at celebrities or something? To me, it's obvious that these are people that are not just involved in a commercial enterprise, they're involved in the evolution of human consciousness, and it happens at all levels. The Theosophists actually had a numbering system all the way up to number 6. It was so funny how it would go, and they would have all the little point numbers. Yeah, if you get into this is going back hundreds of years, but they would say, for instance, such and such painter was at level 1.2, and they're helping the people at 1.1 get up to their level, and somebody at 1 point, and there's like different hallmarks of each level. And so I think it's sort of this like snobbery to say, oh, we're only interested in the the spiritual leaders or something like that. It's like, no, like everyone's operating at these different levels, and sort of the more people you're connecting with, the more you're helping people at that level to get to really ascend in some sense. I mean, it is hierarchical. It's not in a bad way. It's simply to I don't know the right term to use. The Theosophists said it was the soul passing through levels of initiation. And so in a way, she's here to initiate a whole lot of people. And then the ones who say, oh, no, I'm not interested. Okay, well, you've already been through that initiation. You don't need that. But some people need that because they believe that their voice doesn't matter. They believe that they have to be a certain way. And she's telling them, you don't have to be that way. You can be different. You can step towards more truly being yourself. And it's like, yeah, maybe they're not ready for human design, but they're ready for Taylor Swift, and that will help them later be ready for human design or something like that, right? And also, as you said, there are so many different paths that obviously without her being on the path of human design, it's pretty obvious that she has really found who she is, and she's not using her celebrity for personal motives, even with all of this money she's generated. She's helping all the people on her team and then all of her fans. And it's pretty obvious that her heart's in the right place, that she's not just selfishly driven in some way. So, which also makes sense with that left angle. Not to say that the right angle is selfish, but just that she's really here for others. You know, she's not only here to discover her own journey and her own path, but she's here to share what she's found and sort of affect the lives of others. And that's what really does it for her. She sleeps well at night when she knows that she's affected other people in a positive way. It's pretty clear, right? I mean, you can see, like, she's just very, driven to, it's not enough for her to have a relationship. She wants to write about it and share about it, and then other people can learn from what she's learned from, and this whole process. I
Yeah, and
see.
all these
Yeah. Well, please go on,
young,
please.
yeah, and all these young women who drawn to her, as a sort of yeah, role model, as a positive figure. I think that's the most amazing impact you can have, on teenagers and whose brain is still getting formed, and they can see this image of a woman who respects herself, who stands for her values, who generates money but who's generous with it, who speaks her heart. I think that's probably one of the things that also brings her satisfaction or recognition. I mean, just also the experience as a projector, if that's what she is, of getting this genuine recognition from so many people must really fuel her to do even more. That's just, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. She no. I also see we have Monique on video. I'm not sure if you had some comments. You want to chat, Monique?
I was just gonna say, hey, and I'm so glad I jumped on. I'm still driving home, and I was trying to wait till I got home, but I kept wanting to jump on, and so I'm glad I did, and I was able to catch that. Because honestly, Jonah, when I was on Signpost looking at the celebrity charts on there that you have on there, when I saw Taylor Swift as a manifestor on there. And I remember texting you and being like, wait, what? Because I thought she was a projector, and my daughter and I are fans. So, and my daughter and I are both projectors. So we were like, wait, what? And it's just very fascinating to get this take. And I love what you're saying about the defined throat too, the undefined, defined throat. The throat has just been such a point of interest lately. It's just been coming up everywhere. And yeah, that's interesting to say, like, and how you described the G center too, like when you were like, I have a defined G, so I know who I am. It's like, I have no idea who I am. I have energy from my G center. I totally related to that because, I have a vessel of love. My whole cross is in my G center, but I have no idea who I am most days. But I recognize that I put out energy from that place, to others. And, yeah, so I don't know. I haven't been on these calls in a while. I'm just excited to be here and excited to hear you guys speak on it. I don't have, oops, I lost you. I don't have a ton more to add, but yeah, just excited to listen in on it and just see the juxtapose of her being a 6'2" manifestor or a 5'1" projector, and how.
Well, we definitely need to have both on the Celebrity Archive. And, I can apologize to everyone for not having updated the website for quite some time. It's kind of, I go very deep and hyper-focused on one project at a time. And, like, pretty much since HDHD, that fully absorbed me. And then this whole Ibiza event absorbed me. But I know it'll come back around, and there'll be a period of time where I just block out a month or 6 weeks to work on the website. And when I do, I'm going to be adding a whole lot more celebrity charts. And then eventually I want to be able to have links to these recordings directly from the body graphs and links to the audio, so there's a lot to do, but the good news is this is all being saved for posterity. And I even sometimes go back and listen to stuff from last year, and I'm like, wow, there's so much good stuff coming on Signpost. So I'm so glad to have Bahiah on now and to be kind of back doing it again. I've been missing out on these Signpost weeklies. I really thought I'd be able to do them from Ibiza, but it just didn't work out with the time zones and everything, and so it wasn't easy. But yeah, so anyone else have any comments, thoughts? I mean, yeah, I guess talking about the defined to undefined is definitely an interesting aspect of it. How do we approach these things? I mean, one way I look at it also is the life force energy, that the channel is a life force energy, so that basically the life force energy, how is that different from the awareness that we get where we don't have a channel there? And it's not like we can't temporarily have that life force energy flowing through. I mean, we can even amplify it. I mean, I have 12 in an undefined throat. When I'm around a 22 or there's a transit, I kind of get activated, and I can feel the life force energy flowing through me temporarily. But then when it's gone, I'm kind of back to being able to bring awareness to that and talk about it and say, wow, so this is what that felt like, or this is how I experienced it, without necessarily conveying the actual poetry of that channel. So it's just interesting, right? I guess it's when you're defined, that life force energy really has its own requirements in a way. And you're almost required to follow its limitations. And when you do, there's a real vitality there. I've noticed that. Like, I can give an example about the 4426 because we know for sure she has that. And we're talking about Kanye West briefly, he's a single channel 4426. That's all he has, right? And so I had a girlfriend for some years, actually one of the co-founders of High Desert Human Design, Jennifer Vanderheiden. She's a generator, but she has 4426, and I really learned a lot about it because I have an undefined spleen and an undefined ego. So I got to learn a lot about that channel being in a relationship with her. And we were working on a project together, and it was going very slow. I put a lot of energy into it. We also had a compromise there because I have 26. So this is part of the compromise energy where I was trying to collaborate with her in this project, but there's no real collaboration when you have compromise. But I learned a lot. And what I learned was essentially when we were working on this project, she was, from my perspective, not really living up to her side of it. She was not working on it. So what did I do? I started to nag her and complain. Well, she's a defined ego, and this is her life force energy. She actually withered from that. It's like not watering a plant. It's like putting sand on the plant you're supposed to be putting water on, or something like that, right? It was like she literally would her life force energy would deplete from being criticized, from being complaining about, and she would almost seem older, and she would seem more withdrawn, and we would get really it was like petting the cat the wrong way, you're petting the cat and you start to go against the fur, and the cat's and this is what starts happening. Then around that same time, she'd been working on these amazing collage projects, doing a collage for each gate. And she was posting them on Instagram. And she would get 125, 150 likes on Instagram. People saying, wow, this is the most amazing work. I want this as a poster. Real recognition. I mean, hey, generators who have projected channels, they get recognition too. I mean, the channel itself is what's being recognized, right? That's something I always tell to the projector, that it's not their outer authority being recognized. It's not what they're expressing through outer authority. It's their channel. It's their life force energy that's being recognized. And she would literally look younger and be happier and be more vibrant and more vital and beam. And I started to notice hey, Jonah, stop criticizing, stop nagging. Because literally, all I'm doing is diminishing her life force energy. So the channel is almost this way of converting interactions in the world into vitality. And I don't have that. I bring awareness to that process. I can learn how to take a compliment. I can learn how to give a compliment. But I don't necessarily know how to do these things, and I don't necessarily know how to actually feel good about it. And now as I've gotten older and experienced more and learned more, now I can actually, I think, sometimes feel some of that and bask in some of that energy myself. I can allow myself to actually feel more vital when I receive a compliment or something. But I have no projected channels. I'm a generator with only 2 channels, and they're both generator channels. They're 952 and 2946. So it's taken me quite a long time to learn how to experience recognition, because remember, in our openness is where we're learning. And I still don't necessarily get a lot of life force energy from that. It's at a deep level, I become younger and more vital and more healthy and all of this through using my generator channels. So just a little thing I wanted to share about that 4426, that regardless of type, if somebody has that channel and they do receive that recognition for something that they've created and transmitted to the tribe, because it's a creative channel and it's the design of a transmitter, they are going to experience vitality, literal vitality, becoming more vital, looking younger, feeling, more alive. It really is as simple as that. And I think that's something we often overlook as human design analysts, is that this literally is the science of life. And certain people are walking around like zombies, dead inside and dying because they're not using their channels. And for projectors, it's because they're not being recognized. And when they are recognized, there is an actual surge of life force energy. So, thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah. If your mind ever has a doubt, the moment you experience this, you're like, wow, it's just, yeah, it's for real. I'm curious how we can get the actual real chart. I know we can do astrological rectifications with a pendulum. Can we do it for somebody else?
Well, there's a number of rectification methods. I actually prefer tone color rectification and also base. James Alexander is kind of an expert in rectification. There's also Jyotish rectification. There's a man named Vedran Shanti V, or he also goes by River V. Now he's sort of joined a monk's monastery and dropped off the face of the planet a little bit. But if we can track him down, he's, to me, the world's leading human design Jyotisika combined sort of study person, who does both. I also see we're joined by Richard, who's beginning in a minute with his transit report. I'm really excited. But yeah, I do think for the rectification, it would be interesting to have Richard Beaumont to see what he thinks based on his deep study of so many singers and sort of his ear for hearing the difference in defined and undefined throat and different things like that. It would be interesting to have James Alexander do it through tone and color. It would be interesting to have a Jyotisika approach it through Jyotish, because that's basically looking at life events, and you compare the two body graphs and you look at the key events, like when she became famous, when she had different key, when she had relationships end, and you sort of see which sequence of life events fits up better with that birth time, mostly looking at the differences from the ascendant. But yeah. I mean, there's a number of avenues. I do think the one that we've been looking at, the projector, is by far almost unanimously what is used out there. But there's still, it's interesting. She does seem like a role model, and that's a sixth line theme. She did seem to have a lot of relationships and breakups and third line sort of off and on and bonds made and broken. I mean, so there's compelling arguments for both. She also obviously is very seductive. So it's a good question of, which of the keynote is the dominant one and which is something that we sort of experience. And, I don't know if she's polarizing either. That was a question. Someone was really defending the 5-1 birth time. And, I'm an undefined ego. So the more I've deconditioned, the more I've just been like, okay, sure, But someone was really like, no, Jonah, you're wrong. She's a 5-1. And I'm like, well, okay. But, they were defending it, saying that she's extremely polarizing. And I was kind of wondering, is she polarizing? I mean, here in America, even here in Santa Fe, we had a Taylor Swift cover band night, and it was the single biggest turnout of any event in our town square ever. And it was like, it sounded more unifying than polarizing, if you ask me. Like, she brought people from both sides of the political spectrum, even though they don't like her political views. She brought people, you know what I mean? She kind of like brings everyone together for America's girl, so it felt a little more unifying, but I don't know. I mean, that's my perspective on it. So for Richard, he's just been joining. We've just been looking at Taylor Swift. I'm sure you figured that out, but we're talking about the two different birth times that we had for her. So it was really wonderful having Bahiah on for the first Projector Focus. And
yeah. Thank you so much, Bahiah. Sorry I couldn't be there, but welcome to Signpost. And Jonah, great to see you back stateside. Awesome.
Yeah. Happy to be here.
Good. You feeling pretty good? Did you get a little rest, hopefully?
Oh my gosh, yeah. It was a 41-hour flight back with a bunch of delays and stuff, and then I slept for like 2 days. But I'm going to go into my whole Ibiza trip probably at 3, unless you have anything after the transit report. But I figured if you're going to do transit report,
3 would be great.
Yeah, and but I definitely want to catch up. I want to hang out. I'd love to get together, and maybe there's still some snow on the ground, get a nice hot tub in the snow. I saw those photos with Mark and Roger. That was awesome. Yeah. I'm glad you guys have been hanging. So
yeah, that was great.
Yeah. So we'll catch up more soon, and I'll just I'm gonna take a short break, but I'll be listening in. I'm just gonna turn off my camera, but I'll be listening into the transits. It's always one of my favorite things, and I've been a little bit out of the loop. And then I'll just plan to be back. Yeah, I'll even be back in 45 minutes in case it's not the full hour. I'll be ready to just jump in then.
Okay, awesome.
Great.
Hello, everybody. Great to be here with you.
I'll go ahead and mute myself. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I had so much fun.
Oh, thank you, Bahiah. It was so wonderful having you. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, then. I will take it from here. And for those of you that are with us, so I actually pre-recorded this transit report this morning. I had a bunch of energy, and so I got a video to share. I'm going to sit here and watch it with you all. And then after it's over, we can chat about it. Let me share my screen here. And here we go for this week, Monday, November 11th. Hello, I'm Richard Corbett from Emerge by Design, and welcome to my weekly transit report starting on Monday, November 11th. Now, we have a full moon in Taurus later this week on Friday. So before we jump into the daily charts, I sort of want to set the stage just as to where we are in this lunar cycle. So on November 1st, we had a new moon in Scorpio. And Scorpio has the co-rulers, the planets that each, the ancient ruler of Scorpio is Mars, and the modern ruler of Scorpio is the planet Pluto. And at the time of the new moon, they were in a very tight opposition. In fact, the new moon was on Friday, and that Mars-Pluto opposition was exact on Sunday. So it was really at the zenith of its frequency. So very interesting to have the co-rulers of Scorpio in this dynamic position. And furthermore, Pluto is about to leave Capricorn, where it is and was at the time of the new moon, on November 19th, which is also coming up very soon. So this was really painting a picture for us that we are in the world of Pluto, this time of Scorpio, where it's fixed water, the deep within the deep, where the unconscious can become conscious. Pluto is the planet of truth and transformation, but it also can come across in a bit of a fearful way. It is the liminal space we're in this Scorpio world. So that thing about that opposition, I just wanted to remind ourselves that it was telling us that for the entire lunation, it had this signature where we can feel the aggression from Mars and how we balance that with the truth that Pluto is asking us to uncover. And Pluto is very associated with mining the resources and the gems within ourself. And so in that sense, we had a picture at the beginning that this lunar cycle was going to be emotional, being in fixed water, that it was going to be deep, ruled by Mars and Pluto. It makes me think of Halloween, Day of the Dead. I mean, we have ancient traditions of connecting with the underworld during this time of the year. And all of that was really elevated for this particular cycle due to these circumstances that I'm describing. And then so we had the new moon with all that going on. And then a week later, which would have been just this past Friday, we had our first quarter moon. And at that time, well, at every first quarter moon, that's when the sun and the moon are squaring each other. So we've been growing in this lunar illumination in the evening, right? She's getting bigger every minute of every.
Hey, Richard, I think the audio is dropping out.
That are unconscious. Is that working? How's that? Under the rug.
It's back.
No. Thank you. And we can listen to them, to listen to our bodies. You know, if you might be having any health issues that have something you thought you dealt with in the past, but they're coming back again, that would be normal. If there's altercations in relationships that maybe we thought we had moved beyond, they may be coming back again, right? This is a time when Pluto opens up the underworld and things come to the surface. And so again, in that sense, it had the billing as a very stimulating month. So just want to encourage us all to be aware of what's happening, to ground ourselves with our modalities, to connect us to our body, and to really listen to the messages. Because anything in this lunar cycle that is stimulating or triggering us in a deep way, to remind ourselves to go inward. When I get to the charts, I'm going to show how much individual circuitry is being activated right now. And in the human design system, whenever we're talking about individual gates and channels, we're talking about the deepest, most inner core of who we are. What is my truth? What is my inspiration? What is my unique sense of authenticity that I'm here to live out my hero's journey and share with the world? Well, all of these messages are on the table this lunar cycle. And so that, again, it's an inside job right now. We can see a lot of polarity in the outer world. It's very noisy. It's very confrontational. Okay, this is part of that Mars energy as well. But the charts, as we'll look at them, they are pointing us inward. If this stimulates us in a deep way to sit with it, to become aware of it, and to accept it and decide how we will move forward as a result of it. And of course, as always, following our personal authority, which we find in our human design body graph, and developing that physical felt sense of connection with our guiding light, our personal authority. Very important to be connected to that during a lunar cycle like this. So after the first quarter moon this last Friday, that brings us to today. So let me go ahead and jump into the Monday chart. So as we orient ourselves to the two charts here, we can see the sun as of Monday is in gate 43, putting the earth in gate 23. They're both in line 2. And what this is bringing us is the channel of structuring in the body graph, a design of individuality. It's also nicknamed genius to freak. Again, it's speaking to that individual chemistry within ourselves about our own personal breakthrough creative insights and how we can 23, assimilate or structure them in a way that others can understand us. But right out of the gate, we're seeing this week, as we head into the full moon on Friday, that there's going to be a growing illumination and emotional energy from the moon. And part of the sun-earth expression is our own voice of truth, our own individuality. This is really, as I was saying, these are the questions as I'm being stimulated right now out in the outer world here. And I too have been triggered for sure, trying to take that deep breath to go inward and say, what does my truth say? What does this mean for me? Not to get destabilized with it or get caught in something where it pulls me outside of myself. It's to go inward. Now, there is some challenging aspects this week that are going to contribute to the sense of uneasiness, making it a little unclear, right? This is why being grounded can be so important. As we look at the astrological wheel, we have Chiron in Aries in gate 51, line 6. We have Jupiter in Gemini in gate 45, line 3, and they're forming a supportive sextile. Now, I've talked about this in numerous videos. It's been in effect for several weeks, and we're going to have it for some more time in the future. So it's been very supportive. It's been hanging in there. They're both still at 19 degrees in their respective signs. This is the expansive, benevolent power of Jupiter in a supportive communication with the wounded healer. And it's in that gate 51, the gate of shock, part of the channel of initiation. So this really is an initiation. We are being invited to move into this authenticity. Now, the challenge we're looking at is those two planets are, as of Monday, forming what we call in astrology a yod with the sun in gate 43. A yod is when we have two quincunxes from this apex planet. And so we have supportive energy from the Chiron in Jupiter, but the quincunxes to the sun are making it very confusing. Quincunx is 150 degrees. It's hard to get a reference. It's kind of like a fuzzy radio station. So this may add to some of the tension on Monday. It's like, where do we go from here? With all the energy that I've been outlining in these keynotes and description of what these symbols are sharing with us, it's a little hard to see on Monday, but we can say that what we're working on is that life force energy of the sun in the gate 43. We may get some breakthrough ideas or insights, just not sure how that may fit into the overall story. It's also in a bit of an emotional day because the moon is traveling through Pisces. She would have already had her conjunction with Saturn, and later today on Monday afternoon, the moon will be making a conjunction with Neptune in gate 36. So just to say that the keynotes as we move into this week is, how is any dysregulation or overstimulation or challenges, anxiety, any of those negative sensations, breathe. What is my body sharing with me? How can I grow and learn? And from that Chiron, how can I heal whatever wound or limitation or fear, doubt, and insecurity may be holding me back? There can be a lot of fear right now. This U.S. election has been very stimulating. The world stage is very stimulating. They are definitely in interesting times, to say the least. And so it's very easy to get caught up in this
fear mongering, but yet in the charts, there is tremendous support to alchemize that fear into what is my truth? What is my unique contribution? I'm going to be saying a lot more about Uranus as we head towards the full moon, but the planet of shock, change, revolution, and innovation is in another individual gate called the gate of contribution. So between the gate 8 and the channel of structuring, there's a lot of opportunity here to continue to discover our unique voice and what is empowering about that. Because the fear can take us away from that. But alchemizing fear into personal creativity can be self-empowering. And that's a large part of this message of this week. So that's Monday. Let's go ahead and roll into Tuesday. And when we get to Tuesday, one of the major aspects in the astrological wheel are a couple, there's two I want to mention. One is that Mercury traveling through Sagittarius, currently in gate 5 in the sacral center, is forming its exact square with Saturn in Pisces in gate 63. Now, Saturn is going to be turning direct in just a few days. So it's really holding its space, as it has been moving in retrograde ever since July. So it was finally reached the end of that retrograde phase. And as it stations and prepares to move forward in a couple days, right before the full moon, it's really holding space in the gate 63, specifically line 2. Whenever we see Saturn in this retrograde phase, it's doing restructuring of the archetype of that gate. And so as it slows down and stops and stations and prepares to move forward, this is where we may get some forward movement on the restructuring of our doubts. So when I think of logical doubts, this is what we're talking about. You know, what doubts have I had from the past that are no longer serving me as we head into the future? And this is part of the work that Saturn is doing there. And that point is really important, again, because Pluto is in the final days of Capricorn, and Saturn rules Capricorn. So when we think about the sign of Capricorn, it's very structure oriented. When we think about it on a global scale, this is our government institutions, world banks, all of these world institutions. And we've seen since Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008, for 16 years, we have seen Pluto bring some of the truth we didn't know before. How many of these institutions are no longer capable of either telling the truth, much less, or helping the people they serve. And so this has been part of this destabilization of the world scene that we're witnessing in live time. But on a personal level, I'm thinking about structures from Capricorn in my own life. Capricorn is structured, detail, achievement oriented. So how may have built up structures that I find are no longer serving me. And that's what this Pluto transit in the final days of Capricorn. This is why things may be coming up in our body, in our conversations. Things from our unconscious are coming out that we can be aware of now. Things that we may need to let go, that is no longer serving our truth. And that is Pluto's job. It is here to strip away the ego facade to get to our core of inner truth. And so that's why it can appear destabilizing at times. But if we allow the process to unfold in its own mutative way, it can be deeply empowering. And that Pluto, while this is happening, is in an individual gate, gate 60, in the channel of mutation. And the tagline of that in the Ravi Ching is that acceptance is the first step in transcendence. And so I think we can all take that to heart and realize that in these final days here, things may come up and we can let them go. We can find ways to move into our new voice of truth. Saturn is restructuring our logical sense of what's correct for us. And this is all adding to this ongoing story of how am I moving into my pure authenticity with my own personal contribution of inspiration. So Mercury squaring Saturn. The other thing is that the sun, still in that gate 43, is forming a square and a half with the north node, and the moon is basically conjunct the north node at this noontime chart. And then because of that, we also have a half square with the sun to the south node. Here we go with these frictional energies. half squares, square and a halves. Basically, that again, that sun in this position yet again on Tuesday is in a confusing way of what is it? What is the breakthrough? Like we'd like to have the clear answer, but we just have to be patient. I think this particular aspect on Tuesday is just encouraging more patience to realize that we're living within many patterns. There's a pattern within a pattern, right? And with this Pluto changing signs for the next, it won't be back in Capricorn for a couple centuries. There's big frequencies at play right now. And again, in this liminal space where we can get unsure or unclear, but to just, and again, I keep saying breathe, but whatever modality takes you into your sense of personal creativity could be very self-empowering right now. But a little bit confusing there on Tuesday with that, with both the Mercury square Saturn and then the sun and these aspects to the nodal axis, along with the moon, and the moon being very emotional, but it's in the gate 17. And so, you know, with the nodes right now and having the north node in gate 17, again, this is contributing to a lot of the noise. Everybody's got an opinion right now, and it's very easy to get caught up in that noise out there. But yet, once again, we're finding that by going inward right now, there's very fertile soil for personal mutation and self-growth. Okay, let's go ahead and roll it into Wednesday. And as we get to Wednesday, I didn't mention it, but 2 days ago, Venus had moved into Capricorn as well. And so currently on Wednesday, Venus is already, that happens in gate 10 line 2. She's already into gate 10 line 5. And what happens on Wednesday is Venus in Capricorn in that gate 10, the gate of the higher self behavior. Also think of self-love and correct behavior, is forming another quincunx. I keep using these words this week with that Mars. Now, Mars has moved into gate 31 in Leo in the throat center. And so having another quincunx, this confusing, fuzzy energy between Venus, the planet of our values and pleasure and what we want in this world, and Mars, how we go get it, you know, we might be experimenting with this Mars in gate 31, the gate of influence, right? In the channel of leadership. How is my energy or my voice influential? And that's what that makes me want to say that as we're listening to our conversations this week and keying into things that we hear our own selves say, does it resonate? Is it the current truth, or does it need to evolve, right? And so listening to our stories, am I having an influential voice the way it resonates with my truth right now? I think these can be really helpful indicators of how we're coming along with this deeply plutonic, powerful lunar cycle. And we can also see that Uranus, well, I mentioned Uranus in that gate 8, the sun is moving towards its opposition, and that's going to be tied up with the full moon that I'll get to here in just a few moments. So let's go ahead and roll this into Thursday. And on Thursday, from the astrological wheel, the only aspect that's still really tight is that Venus quincunx to Mars, which I've just mentioned that. Otherwise, not a lot of exact aspects on Thursday, but still more, I think, of just this liminal space, not really clear, really hard. I mean, with this much Scorpio lunar cycle and this Pluto here on Thursday, it's only 5 days away from leaving Capricorn. Again, just to the reminder to really listen, allow things to come to the surface. This is the power of the time to find this new information in that sense. You know, there's something hidden that has the opportunity to come into our consciousness. And I think that is really one of the biggest messages. And then finally here, let's get to the full moon. Here's the full moon. Now, this will be taking place on Friday, the 15th at 2:28 p.m. Mountain Time. And one of the most important things to mention about this full moon is that this will be the last full moon with Pluto in Capricorn. So for 16 years, every full moon, well, not actually, there was a couple where Pluto tipped its toes into Aquarius, but for the most part, for 16 years, we've had full moons in Capricorn. This will be the last one. So it already is bringing with it the deep emotionality of the Scorpio season and the Scorpio new moon lunar cycle that we're still in. This is the full moon, which is always the moon at her zenith of illumination. It's just sort of this, the full moon, right? She's so beautiful in the night sky, but it can be extremely emotional in that sense. Now, this week, again, we still have this channel of structuring that we've had all week, and the moon is lined up with the earth. And so this full moon is taking place in gate 23, line 6. This is, again, this individual frequency of personal truth and expression. It's about what is my breakthrough? What is my insight that I'm here to share in this current lifetime? So very powerful lunation in terms of that. If we're focused on our own creative side of ourselves and what we're here to do on this planet, in spite of all the challenges and all the noise right now, if we're going inward and really working on our message that resonates with our truth, this is a full moon for us. There's going to be great energy for that. That line 6 is the line of truth. This is the line of the role model and wisdom. And so we can find deep truths within our expression by listening to our stories. We also, I got to mention, we got the channel of judgment down here because Venus has moved into gate 58 and we have the south node in gate 18. So again, this is part of the noise I think we'll hear with all the different opinions from everybody. Everybody's trying to tell us which way to go and what to do. And it can be so very confusing with all these quincunxes that are happening through the week. But again, at the full moon, to really stand in gratitude, stand in appreciation for how far we may have come individually and where we have yet to go in spite of these large challenges facing the global community. The way we can help the world right now is to be ourselves. This is kind of a precursor message to 2027, which is something we talk a lot about in the human design community. We are moving into an individual age. We are moving into individual circuitry, and in line 6, we're talking about finding individual truth. This is what our future currency will be, is personal authenticity. And so even this lunar cycle seems correlating with that. I want to mention that channel of judgment again. You know, Venus being this planet of our internal harmony, what we love, the beauty and aesthetics we appreciate, is in the gate of aliveness, wants to be alive. Venus wants to really feel itself, to feel that emotional spirit here in this root gate. But the thing is, Venus is also, at the time of this full moon, is in a T-square to the nodal axis. And I feel like what that means is just the stakes are high. This is really about our life trajectory. Like finding what this truth is for each of us is really important. It's kind of why we're here. And it can be difficult shadow work. It's just not something that necessarily happens on its own. We've got to allow ourselves to be there and follow our authority. But it does indicate this trajectory with that Venus in that T-square to the nodes, and it is the channel of judgment. And so just to be careful of getting caught up in it, right? It's not about listening to other people judge us. It's not about us judging other people. We are all where we are, and we're all at the right place at the right time, no matter the challenges. And it's here to stimulate us to find this authenticity. So just don't want to get caught too up in that. Actually, that makes me think that I didn't mention, you know, back at that first quarter moon, we also had the channel of inspiration when the moon was in gate 13, but we had the channel of inspiration, another individual channel that took place in the first week of this cycle we're in. And here again, at the full moon, we're having the channel of structuring. So another very strong individual energy. And the other thing to layer on top of that is that this full moon in Taurus is conjunct Uranus. Now, I mentioned Uranus being in that gate 8. At the exact time of the full moon, Uranus has retrograded all the way back to gate 8, line 1. And that is an individual gate. And line 1 is the foundation of every hexagram. And that line is named the line of honesty. Honesty. I mean, honesty is powerful right now. Vulnerability is powerful. I mean, this is how we navigate change, is to be honest with ourselves first, honest with others in our sharings. And again, to be authentic and vulnerable. This is where power is, and that can actually soothe the fear, doubt, and insecurity, I think, if that's where our energy is focused. So Uranus is bringing its electric quality, its innovation, its revolutionary quality. So here we have this whole cycle I've been describing, and the full moon at the zenith of illumination is conjunct Uranus. It's a real breakthrough opportunity. I really just see it as that. There's real potential in spite of, again, all the challenges I feel like many of us may be facing right now. We got to keep our eye on the prize here. And the prize is what is in it for me. And that may sound a little selfish, but it's more of a higher self, divine selflessness. You know, if we're sharing our voice of truth and authenticity, we're sharing a higher frequency to the world itself. And so there's nothing more beautiful than that. And that's really the message that I think this entire lunation is sharing with us. So yeah, there's the full moon. It's conjunct Uranus. The full moon itself is in line 6, again, the line of truth, wisdom, and authenticity in the 23. This individual expression. What is my voice now? Right? What resonates down to my bone marrow core of what I want to shout at the mountaintop? Who am I? This is really what's behind this frequency with all this individuality. So what else can I say other than very powerful full moon? I think it'd be, again, to stand grounded within everything that we feel appreciative for, things that we're grateful for, that we've been, our allies that have supported us. That Jupiter in gate 45, that's tribal energy. So that we have allies. And if we can stand in that and take small steps, right? Sometimes the first step is the hardest. So if you are sensing sense of overwhelm or anything of that nature right now, I just want to encourage you that you're right where you should be right now for yourself. We all are, and we can go from there. We can realize that we can embrace this deep, dark, hidden, unconscious energy and actually hold the gems for our own personal transformation. And I think this full moon is full of that, being the last full moon with Pluto still in the sign of Capricorn. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap out the weekend here. We'll move into Saturday. And on Saturday, the sun will leave, or I should say, move into gate 14. So we have Saturday starting out with 14 line 1 in the Earth and its opposition in that gate 8. So what's happening, we've been talking about Uranus in gate 8 over here, and the sun moving into its opposition. And so the Uranus will be conjunct the Earth in the chart here. The point being here is that not only did we have Uranus conjunct the full moon by less than a degree, so 2 hours after the exact full moon at 2:28 p.m., the moon would have conjuncted Uranus. That's, again, a lot of electric energy for those hours. And here we are the very next day after the full moon, and the sun is moving into the exact opposition. It's actually going to be exact later, I think Saturday evening. So this is really going to be in effect Saturday and Sunday. So if you had the full moon in conjunct Uranus on Friday, and now here the sun opposite Uranus Saturday and Sunday, this is, again, very stimulating, electrifying, possibly revolutionary, innovative full moon that we can tap into. They tap into what is my truth, my expression. Gate 14 been another individual gate called the gate of power skills. This is the life force energy of the sacral center to move in its own mutative direction. The power of the sun offering us this opportunity, following authority. I always have to keep sprinkling that in here. You know, these are transits. So this is never me predicting what anybody should do other than follow strategy. We're just describing the frequencies in which we are living right now. But the sun is asking us, do we want to move in this personal mutative direction? And that Earth here on Saturday, line 1, being lined up with Uranus 8 line 1 in this individual creative mutative voice of contribution, of our inspirational contribution. But it does have that electrifying feel to it, no doubt. Venus will still be in that T-square with the nodes in the gate 58. So we're just feeling some drive, possibly some structure. How can we put this together? What can we adjust? How can we tend to the garden of our soul so that we can make this all work for ourselves, whatever this process is that we're each going through? And then let's go into Sunday. We'll wrap this up here. On Sunday, the sun moves into line 2 of that gate 14. And what we're getting here, and I'll be starting off my transit report next Monday, talking about this. This Mercury, as of Sunday, is moving into its exact opposition to Jupiter. Now, this will be the first of 3 because Mercury is going to turn retrograde very soon, pass over this opposition again the second time, and then move back a third time. So there's more to dive into here, but I do want to point it out that first opposition, Mercury is currently in gate 26 at this time, and Jupiter still in gate 45. So we've got two tribal gates. We have both planets are in their detriment, but they're in what we call mutual reception. Jupiter rules Sagittarius, but it's in the opposite sign of Gemini, and Mercury rules Gemini, but it's in the opposite sign of Sagittarius. So it's an interesting dynamic. So even though they're both in their detriment or not at their ability to access all of their power and frequency, they're in each other's signs. So they are sort of helping each other out. And so I just get this sense of that tribal circuitry between the 26 and the 45. This is speaking to our allies. This is listening to our allies, our friends, our network, our community. We don't have to do this all alone. Others need our help, that we can be there from them, and then we can ask for that support back. So, but we're in a very communicative dynamic with this Jupiter opposition here. We're getting the high-minded ideas of Sagittarius and the hope and the dreams of what this mutative process we're going through may mean to us, but we're also wanting to understand the details of that Gemini and have all the conversations to put all the pieces in place. And so again, could be a little scattered, could be a little confusing. It's not the clearest energy available because we're in the world of the underworld here still. But there's definitely a story playing out there. We'll come back to that transit again as that opposition will be in effect over the coming weeks ahead, and Mercury will go into retrograde. That'll be part of next week's story. So I think I'll wrap it up there. Just want to thank everybody for joining me and for listening. If you got some value out of this, we appreciate a like or a comment or maybe subscribe. We appreciate growing our community. Hope you're having a good Monday out there, and I wish you.
Okay, everybody, where am I at here? Am I back on? Yeah, so there was that, and I'm still here and happy to talk about the week ahead, pull up some charts. If anybody has any contributions, questions, I'm all ears.
Yeah, thank you for that, Richard. Yeah, please, anybody who's currently on, Bahiah, Monique, Nancy, Kalima, anyone who wants to comment or chat. I'll get my video back on in a second. Just organizing my place a little bit. Yeah, that was, I always love hearing what's going on. And I remember even months ago looking at this window because of the elections and being like, 17, really? Of course, So, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, so
a lot going on. Yeah.
Any comments from anybody? Anything they'd like to chat about? Otherwise, you and I can catch up, of course, a little on. Or anything that you think deserves further exploration. It's quite a time. This is kind of. I'd love to at some point do a whole series of key moments in history in the 7 years leading up to 2027. That's something that I realized is, COVID-19 really hit in 2020, 1 7-year cycle before 2027.
Yeah.
Kind of, you know what I mean? It's kind of wild, how the clock worked. By February 2020, exactly 7 years to the, in the countdown. And then I remember you and I were in Salt Lake City at the 3.5-year mark. It was Casey Daly who pointed it out. She said, Jonah, just so you know, it's exactly 3.5 years till 2027. I remember going wow, this roller coaster is not stopping. This roller coaster is just accelerating. And it definitely feels like now we're in this couple year buildup. I was actually, I haven't announced it fully yet. I was chatting about it on the HDHD group. I'm going to start doing mid-February, Ides of February events, because I was asking around when I was at this thing in Ibiza, and I was looking to see if anybody else is doing it. Nobody's doing an event for 2027. And I'm not saying that I'm going to do the 2027 event, but I'd like to at least have a precedent for it. Because we've done, the last 3 years, we've done the HDHD Winter Respite, and we've done the Spring Fling. The Spring Fling we've done in March. But this year, I want to do the Spring Fling in May, call it something different a little bit. I was trying to think of the themes, what we want to do for it in May. And I was thinking I'm going to do, I'm still playing with names, but HDHD Winter Wonderland, something like that. Subtitle, The Ides of February. a wintertime high desert human design event. Because February is still very much winter here. I mean, there'll still probably be, some snow and so on. And yeah, I was just thinking to have something right around mid-February, because then if we do it this year, which will be 2025, then we'll do it 2026. If it's going well and people are into it, we could actually do it for 2027, unless there's some other place we should be. Like, it's not like I think that when the date changes, something's going to happen. It's not like that. It's not like I think, we're going to snap our fingers and something, there's not going to be like an event that's noticeable, but just to be with a bunch of people who are really tapped in to try to notice the background frequency shift. I mean, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. So
100%.
Yeah. So, and I'm open to your feedback as well. We can always take it offline and kind of talk about it, see if, you and Brandy have some ideas for it, or where would be a very energetic hotspot, where is like an energetic place just to feel that shift occur. But I mean, Santa Fe is pretty energetic. Taos is pretty energetic. We could pick a place in Taos that we want to be at, or talk about it. Talk about where. I mean, obviously the whole world's going to feel it, but I just think it'd be cool to have friends and family and community all there to sort of experience it together. So,
absolutely, such a historic moment, and I like the idea of doing it each year as we lead up to it.
Yeah, it's like we might as well. I mean, we've been doing stuff in March, and I even had that thought last year, and I was kind of like, why don't we just do it in February? Like, February is when the shift is going to happen. So we might as well. But yeah. Winter Wonderland.
Sounds like fun. I know it's winter now. Here it is.
It's a winter wonderland now. Yeah, everyone can't see right now, but it's snowy out. Snowy and sunny. That's how Santa Fe gets. Yeah. And I saw a little clip from you guys are still going on the river. That's so nice. That's so awesome.
Yeah,
even with the snow. Yeah.
So we were able to do it. We've done it at least once or twice every month. We even did it in January, February this year. So
that's
we got
awesome.
November in, and we're going to be looking for a window of opportunity for December, just to have done it every month, which I think is kind of fun.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah. That was such a fun time at HDHD doing that.
Yeah, totally.
Kalima was there. Yeah, Monique was there. Well, you didn't get to go on the river, Monique, but maybe this next year. And and lots of. So for my segment, I mean, in 20 minutes, I'll start. I'll wait to really talk too much Ibiza till then, because I know a few people were going to join right then because they weren't able to join earlier. So I'm just going to hold off for them. But yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of interest from the folks I met in Ibiza coming to Santa Fe. Pretty much everyone I talk to. That's the nice thing about living in northern New Mexico, is that it's not hard to convince people to come visit. It's kind of like living in Hawaii. You're never really going to be lonely. If you have a guest room, people are going to just come in all the time because they all want to go to Hawaii. It's kind of like that here too. I mean, especially Absolutely. Europeans. I met this guy. He's so funny. So I met this really cool couple, Petra and Marcus. They're from Germany, and he was just a riot. They're in their like early 50s or so. He's never been to the U.S. She's been before, but just to L.A. when she was younger. And they're actually coming to visit. And so the whole time, like, I hung out with him quite a bit. And he would just be like, Jonah. And I'd be like, what? He'd be like, John Wayne. Like, he loves, like, that's what he thinks. Or he'd be like, Billy the Kid. Like, he would just, like 20 minutes would go by, and then just out of the blue, he would think of another Western icon and do this thing. And then he starts telling Petra, he's like, I'm going to buy a gun. And I'm like, Marcus, first of all, they're not going to sell you a gun. Second, even if you got one, you can't take it back with you. And he's like, I just want the gun. I want 2 guns. Pew, pew, pew. So it was really cute for me to see like Europeans, imagination of the Wild West. They hear Santa Fe.
Love it.
They love it. They totally.
Like
yeah, he was like, are there cowboys? Do they wear cowboy hat? I'm like, oh, there's cowboys. Yeah, they're around. So it was pretty cute. Yeah, it was really cute. Hey there, Kalima. You're still driving. You have a long drive. This has been okay. Yeah. Dare I ask, what's such a long drive? No, it's okay. If you're not able to talk right now, we can, or if you can.
We had to go pick up our son from grandma's.
Oh, wonderful. Well, he's going to be so excited to see you guys. Is Joe in the car with you?
Yes.
Oh, hey, Joe. Hey, good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, so for those who don't know, Kalima and Joe were production coordinators slash everything people on the film production in Ibiza. I think if we actually tried to enumerate the roles you filled, it would fill up a page. So it was everything from production coordination to like chef, personal chef for all the talent and the people and the crew and everyone to like I don't know. I mean, you guys did everything, so it was pretty cool to see. And I was pretty busy on the fundraiser, but then we still got to join forces after the fundraiser was over, which was awesome. And before doing location scouting, I mean, it was cool to see the whole film production and how that all worked and get a little behind the scenes there. So the movie is going to be really good. It'll be out in about 2 years, so it's a good test of patience. But it's going to be awesome. I do think it'll end up on Netflix. I think it really. I can see the trajectory, and it's like a rocket taking off, and that's where it's headed. So pretty cool. Cool
that is
project.
awesome. Can't wait to hear more about it when you start here in a few minutes. And
Yeah.
thank you for all the posts. You kept that rolling. It was really fun to follow along.
Oh yeah, well I had some time. It wasn't. It's still an island. I love that Santa Fe is total island life. Also, even though we're not an island, we call it Land of Mañana here. But then when you're on an island, everything's an island time. So it really is like, what's the hurry? Like chill out a little bit. And that was really nice to be. It's like we were all working super hard, but we were also in this place that was very conducive for relaxing. So when it was time to relax, it was kind of like you go to the market and they're playing like some cool like electronic reggae and everyone's kind of chilled out, and it was nice. It was really a good vibe. So
What's the human design community like in Ibiza? Is it still alive and kicking?
It's been 12 years since they've had events, and they're going to start again. And this was a really important kind of moment for them because the whole human design community sort of came together. I would say the sort of key figures from my perspective are Sonia Bejering, who is, she teaches a lot and she holds LYDs and things like that there. And she is going to be restarting a monthly meetup. And so we totally connected on a lot of things, organizing events. She's going to do an LYD next year. I mean, she's been throwing events, but mostly with people coming to visit Ibiza. And so she was now kind of more tapped in and plugged into the people already there. Other than that, there's a guy named Billy White who's lived there about 11 years. He's from San Francisco. Billy's totally awesome. And he's a 2-4, so he's like unconsciously connected to everybody in the island. Like the amount of people who know Billy, like I would meet somebody and they'd say, so, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm here I'm working on a documentary for human design. They would say, do you know this guy Billy? And I was like the amount of people who said, do you know Billy? And he's really awesome. I'll be sharing some pictures, and if you're still on in a little bit, I'll show some more about Billy. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting finding human design communities. It's not the easiest thing. I spent a couple weeks in London back in 2022. Very little human design community there. I met up with like 3 people who are kind of like the core folks, but and there is a Human Design London Facebook with hundreds of people, but they're all sort of in their own little realms and they're kind of interested but not really organized. A lot of that happens in the bigger cities. I do think Ibiza has a great potential for becoming what it once was, which was a real hub for human design. I think that's gonna start happening more now. It was kind of after Ra's passing, they stopped doing events there. In fact, even the event they had already scheduled, they did in Toronto. So, and then his daughter, Sarah, who was helping out on the events, lives in Canada. And then Viviana, who was helping throw the events, ended up not kind of stepping down from that role. Hopefully she'll be stepping back into that role. I really think this event that we had and the film happening there and bringing so many people together for this sort of reunion was a real jumpstart, kind of put a lot of energy back into it. And especially the fact that we only announced the event like 2.5 weeks before it happened and got 30 signups, which was incredible. We raised over $30,000 for the film. The outpouring of support within 2 weeks. So I think everyone kind of looked at that and was like, wow, people want this. Like it's not happening. it hasn't been happening because there's been no demand, and it just hasn't been happening because everyone's been busy doing all these different things with their lives, which it just happens. We can't all be throwing events where, I mean, Jovian has been busy. They launched Raw TV, which is totally awesome, and they've been busy sort of doing their archival work of Raw's work, and it's really a whole lot of work there. Other people in Europe have been busy teaching and doing their whole teaching programs, and the sort of conference retreat coming together to celebrate shared love of design knowledge really hasn't happened in the past decade. But it used to happen every year. So I think people are kind of seeing that, and it's going to probably start happening every year again. I hope. So certainly my hope. Yeah.
Can you go to the places where Raw like lived or visited or the cave or stuff like that, or is it?
We can talk about some of that. I mean, it's definitely sensitive because
Oh,
it's sensitive only because so many of his friends are still there and still alive, and so many of these locations are personal and on private property and things like that. So, as an example, I'll share in a little bit. We can go into some of the things we did, but just as an example, Billy, for instance, who's really good friends with Ra's family and a lot of people who were Ra's friends, he's been to the tree where Ra lived. But we didn't organize a trip there because it's in someone's backyard and it would require a lot of permission and it would just be a little bit intrusive on their livelihood. I would say if you move to Ibiza, you get to do all that stuff because then you're an insider, you're their friends, you're connected. But being an outsider, there still is sort of this respect for the personal privacy of the people who really have lived there their whole lives, most of them. I mean, I'll talk about, one of the men I met who was one of Ra's best friends, and he's lived in the same home for 43 years. And yeah, Ra lived there with him, and I think if you get to know him, he'll invite you into his home, but he wouldn't want 35 or 45 or 60 people coming into his home to take pictures of the room Ra lived in or something like that. The good news is, for all of us, we are so tapped into the energies that you can absolutely 100% feel incredible energies on the island. Like there are ley lines, whatever you want to call them. There are these incredible power spots and sacred spots, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So like the short answer of like, are there sacred sites to visit? Absolutely yes, and they are relevant to the history of human design. And there are a number of public sites as well. Like, for instance, if you've seen Ra's encounter with the voice, that was in front of this huge tree. That tree is sort of an icon. People make pilgrimages to that tree. It's like a spiritual heart of the island. So you can absolutely just drive up to that tree and hang out and hug it and anything you want there, have a picnic, That's those kinds of things are absolutely part of the spiritual commonwealth of the land. And then other places like the tree Ra lived in, well, that's a little more private, But we were, because we were working on the film, we did get to see some pretty cool sites. We got to go into his former office, which now there's a young guy who rents it as an electronic music production studio. So he played us all his music, and I thought, Ra would probably be happy knowing that the room that he did a lot of his work in is now being used for such a creative endeavor and is like really stylish and hip and things like that. So, I mean, those kind of things just happened organically. It was funny. They didn't really, it's not like we went looking for Ra's office. You just start to meet his friends. They're like, oh yeah, by the way, that was Ra's office. Or, oh, by the way, that's where he lived at this point. Or this was his favorite cafe or things like that. So yeah, I mean, some of those things, like you could definitely, I'm sure next year when people go, they'll do a little tour. I was actually, I don't have any projected channels, so I won't say recognized, but I was told that I should be the tour guide by this guy, Ben. Ben was like, Jonah, you know so much human design history, because it was actually so funny how synchronistically it happened. I'm a 2946, so it's all about just ending up in the right spot, And so Ben and I ended up a block away from Sandy's pub, which was where Ra first went when he came to Ibiza. And I was like, oh, we should go by Sandy's, which is where Ra went. And then later we ended up, so, I definitely I could do a little day trip tour to like Ra's favorite spots and things like that. And that would be kind of cool for people. But more than that, I would just say that the energy of the island is so profound. People who have no connection to human design feel it. I mean, people feel it when they're coming in on the plane as the plane's landing. People break into tears as they're getting off the plane and touching the ground. People feel, sometimes it almost feels like an anxiety attack. There's certain parts of the island I can tell when I'm getting close because my stomach starts to I start to feel almost like this weird energy just coursing through the whole front of my body. So yeah, we can talk. You know what? I'm probably going to start a map of that in about 10 minutes. I'm going to start with the map and we'll go through the map. Let's just see if there's anything you have, Richard, anything you want to talk about, any final, maybe take the next 5-10 minutes. Cause I want to wait. I know that Lasita is going to join at the top of the hour and I want to wait for her to really go into too much of it.
Oh, cool. Have you had a chance to catch? Well, you probably haven't had a chance to.
Well, no, and I know that she, I haven't really got to talk to anybody. I've just been so zapped. Did I miss anything in Santa Fe? Or, well, you guys were doing, maybe that would be a cool update. How did your event go on the West Coast?
Yeah, we did a retreat up in Washington. It was awesome.
Oh, that's so
called
great.
The Fern Grove Valley. It was a 40-acre mountaintop property with 10 yurts. And they had one real big yurt where we held the event, and then everybody slept in their own yurts. And it was beautiful up there, right outside of your hometown. It was in Buckley.
Very cool. Yeah, I know right where that is. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really pretty, and it was just so transformational. We had an awesome group of 15 people that joined us. And so we took them through an embodied LYD over the couple days. And it was also focused on relating, 9-centered relating and how that's going. So it was really powerful. Really glad we got to do it. And it's a great, if we ever want to do something in that area, it's a beautiful retreat center. They got a lot going on there.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah.
And
I
we
was
just out at Ghost Ranch last week, looking at the possibility of doing some things there. Don't know if you've been on that property itself yet.
I haven't been there. It's so funny. I keep almost going there. I was invited to a wedding there, and I did actually have a series of phone calls with them a couple of years ago about having a Locanand Diaz there for a retreat. And so they sent me their whole info packets and all the rooms, and we even picked out times and everything. And then we weren't able to get his visa paperwork done and had to cancel it all. Right. Thankfully, with no loss of investment or anything. But they're awesome. I mean, they are so dialed in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They are. It is so beautiful. It is just stunningly gorgeous. They've
Wow.
got 100 rooms that are rentable, all different kinds of shapes and sizes. They've got over a dozen different types of meeting rooms. And then they have all the activities there too. And they've got good food, so you can have meal plans included, very inexpensive. Like if you do breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it's only $30 for the day.
I remember that. And they even have camping options. So one of the cool things that we'd figured out was that we could kind of have tiered pricing where, you just pay a fee to attend all of the lectures, and then you sort of work out your lodging and cuisine with them. And if you want to bring your own food in a cooler and camp, then it's super cheap. And if you want to rent a nice suite and have your meals paid for, you have that option as well. So
yeah, really flexible, really beautiful, great people out there. So yeah, that was cool.
Well, let's keep
on the radar.
Keep that going. I've been definitely pretty inspired being in Ibiza, thinking about some of the possibilities for different events. And
well, I think you're right. I mean, I'm seeing this too. I mean, people are ready to come in aura. I mean, this, we had the whole COVID experience, human design exploded, but everybody was getting it from a computer. And I mean, we've certainly seen that with the HDHD conference. I mean, it's just so powerful to be in person.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have a lot of plans for that this year too, but yeah. No, I think, there's room for a number of different kinds of events and different shapes and sizes. I'm now seeing that HDHD has kind of turned into Burning Man human design in the sense of just like everything happening all at once and dance parties and, aura experiments and all the different it's just kind of like maximalist. And then there's also room for more focused retreats and different times of year. And, it's really, there was, something Ra said, which is for a community to really be a community, everyone has to have skin to skin contact, like holding hands at least once per season. And so I really see the need for at least 4 fundamental events per year. They don't have to all be big, But, to have the opportunity, not everyone's going to be able to go to all of them. Some people will only go to one per year. That's totally fine. But, I would love to do 4 events a year with you and Brandy and Mike and the sort of the community that we've formed here, that are really dedicated to maintaining, to keeping the fire burning. That's how I call it. And some people might skip a few years. That's fine. They can always come back later. But as long as we keep the fire burning, then we've sort of done our job. We're the sort of fire keepers, to let people come and go. I usually describe the defined G that way. I tell the undefined G, it's like, if somebody's like pressuring them or blaming them or anything at all for leaving, screw that person, because the real right people who have the real right spirit are going to let that undefined G leave and come back 7 years later. And if the defined G is really in the right place and with the right spirit and with the right people, the fire will still be burning. That's sort of our role. Our role is to sort of make the place that the undefined G can sample, and then go to another place and sample another place. And then from the wisdom that emerges out of having sampled all these places, they can make an informed decision of which fire they want to get warm by. And so as long as we keep those fires going, I think we'll be just fine.
We'll do it. We will do it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, okay. I think I'm going to get started then. I mean, maybe I'll wait a few minutes for Lisita, but I'll at least put up the map. You're welcome to stick around if you want, or if you have things going on.
Stick around.
No worries. And I'm just going to go ahead and put up the map of Ibiza here on Google Maps, just so you can start getting oriented. And it's cool we have Kalima on, and I know Joe's driving, but if you guys want to chime in on any of it, because they were just there. Kalima, Joe, and myself were the 3 people who were there for the entire time, from a week before everybody else arrived to days after everyone left. So how funny is that we were like the skeleton crew. We were the crew that showed up early and left late. We were the crew that cleaned the villas when everyone moved out. We were the crew that were pretty much there at the beginning and there at the end. And it was really cool to sort of have experienced the entire thing, not only start to finish, but from before the start to after the finish. That's how it is. So, okay, I'm going to show a map here, so everyone can kind of see what we're talking about. So you see there's 2 islands here. This North Island is Ibiza. The South Island is Formentera. There's actually, I'll zoom in here. This used to be a land bridge as recently as 5,000 or 6,000 years ago. So this area here, you could actually walk along the land bridge to get all the way over to Formentera. Formentera is another beautiful little island. It's sort of the binary of Ibiza. We didn't get to go there this time, but it's everything's a binary, right? So even Ibiza, it's almost like a binary star. It's a binary island. Oh, it's not letting me scroll for some reason. Oh, there. Okay. Come on, Google Maps. Let me just refresh that. Okay. Looks like Google Maps is having an issue. I'm going to stop sharing for a second until that resolves. I also have a map that I've been working on. Just a little sketch of it. It's not done yet, but this is what I'm working on. I will return to this later because I have a little story about it. But this is my little hand-drawn Ibiza map here. So, with some of the points that I've found. Let me see what's going on with this. This Google Maps really doesn't seem to like what I did with the sharing there. Just a second here. Oh, Lucita's joined. Wonderful. I was hoping you would. I was kind of killing time. Waiting to talk too much. Yeah.
Right. I didn't get in through Discord, but I used the link you had given me before.
Yeah, we changed some things on Discord because we opened it up so everyone is welcome to join the Discord server now. It's still kind of quote unquote invite only, but there's no fee to join. But then we have all these paid members. And so this weekly is for the paid members. Although we also we had Bahiah on early, and when we have special guests, they're welcome to invite friends to drop in and stuff like that, or we simulcast it to Instagram, which was cool. So I mean, it's still sort of open in that way, but yeah, no, we're working out the right way to do it. Right now, the link sends to Discord, and then the Discord sends. It's a little bit convoluted, but I'm glad you got in, and I love your background there. It's a very we have some similar backgrounds. I know that
Oh.
you guys have a screen door that I saw a couple weeks ago when we were doing a Zoom. I have the same one of the painted Van Gogh cherries or something like that. Hey, Genoa, good to see you. So I was just showing this map that I made, a little map of Ibiza. Let me make it full screen here, and it's really fun. I've been trying to put the sacred sites of Ibiza. So I've been putting like, this is the big tree where Ra recorded his encounter with the voice. Some of the different, there's kind of like a Stonehenge type site over here. And something really, really cute happened. I met a man named Bamboo. Did you guys ever meet Bamboo? Do you know Bamboo? He's a real character. You might recognize him, honestly. He's one of those people. He was one of Ra's best friends, and Ra lived with him for quite a while, from around 1981, or no, 83 when Ra first arrived. He lived in the home since 81. I've been getting all the history. And he was the one who threw these famous full moon parties out in the forest. That he was kind of one of the main freaks. And Bamboo, let me see if I get a little picture of him here. I'll just kind of throw the picture on so you can see who I'm talking about. I showed him my mystical, oh wow, my Chrome is really messing up here. Let me exit out of it. But I showed him this mystical map I was making, because he's quite a mystical guy himself. He's not in human design, but just as an example, the way he talks, I asked him what he thought. He was talking about something political and what's going on, and he was very kind of sad about the political situation in America, as I think many are. And and he was saying, something is strange in the moon, Jonah. He's like 75 years old, and he talks in a very intentional, sort of deliberate. And I said, what do you mean the moon? And he said, well, the scientists can tell you the weather temperature, and they can tell you the wind, and they can tell you the rain, but they cannot tell you the moon. The moon has turned it's like the energy of the moon has changed. And I said, really? And he said, yes, the other night I went to the moon, and I was on the moon and looking at it. And it looked normal, so I went behind the moon. And then I looked behind the moon, and I looked out to the stars, and I saw the energy coming in. And it was very dark, Jonah. There are dark forces at work. And I'm like, this is just totally normal for him, right? This guy to just be like, yeah, I just went to the moon, So, just how he talks. But really, really delightful man. I'm going to show... I sent my buddy Travis to meet him, because every week... he's at the Sunday market in San Juan, and I guess Travis didn't share that photo. I thought he did. Just a moment here. I want to try to get a good photo of Bamboo. Oh, I know who has one. Therese has a really good photo of him. And it was really great, because Bamboo's like, he's not really on the internet much. He's kind of one of these guys who's just wandering mystic, but every Sunday he does what he calls his public service, and he walks around with a deck of oracle cards he's made, and he just lets people draw cards at the market. And so I sent my friend Travis there to meet him. I was like, you got it, because Travis kind of stuck around, and I said, you've got to meet this guy Bamboo. And he's like, well, how am I going to know him? And I showed him a picture, but he's like, well, how am I going to find him? I'm like, oh, you'll find him. No joke, Travis is sitting at a cafe, and Bamboo walks up to him. Travis is a projector mind, so this is very like, he got recognized. And literally says, do I know you? I feel that you are my friend. And Bamboo just literally said that to him out of the blue. And Travis said, are you Bamboo? And he said, I'm Bamboo. Who are you? And I hadn't told Bamboo about Travis or anything. I mean, it was literally like, I sent Travis to this town, and then Bamboo was there, and of all the people, it was really beautiful. So I have a nice little picture of Bamboo here. This was shared by Therese Jagersberger with Nisarg, and that's Bamboo in the middle there. So you get the sense of him. So when I showed Bamboo my mystic map, I said to him, so I'm working on this mystic map of Ibiza. I'm taking these little notes here, and I'm kind of putting all the mystical locations I can find and all the sacred sites with the Phoenicians and so on. Is there anywhere I should add? And he goes, yes, there's a very mystic man, and his home is a very mystical site. You go to San Juan, and you go down the street. His name is Bamboo. So he's a real joker. So I put it on there actually. It's hard to see here, but I actually have Bamboo's house right by San Juan there as one of the mystic sites. So he was just delightful. Actually, this is he gave this to me. He spent a bit of time in Japan, and so this is an original calligraphic work. And then he also sent along. He has a friend in Albuquerque he hasn't seen for over 20 years, and he sent this along to his friend. And something really cute, he told me all these stories of his friend and how he hadn't seen him for over 20 years, and they'd completely lost touch. And his friend runs Hotel Zaz in Albuquerque, which is a really hip, cool hotel. And so he sent me this to bring to his friend. You got to see. And I think I think he wouldn't mind me sharing it. He'd be fine with it. So this is some of the art that he makes. There's another little pouch in here. It's very, very funny. And this is a sculpture, both sides. This is I asked which is the front, and he said they're both the front. So
Look it up close to the camera.
yeah, okay, there we go. Here we go. And so and then the funny thing is there's another part to it. So there's another part here, which is in the bag. So just a moment here. He was very careful to explain. There's a little feather that goes right here. So there's the feather. And then there's a heart. And he explained the heart is not glued on because the heart shouldn't be glued, it should be free. The heart should be free, is what he said. So he didn't glue the heart, he just sort of, he just placed it on here for his friend. So I'm gonna deliver this to his friend in Albuquerque. I have a mission, and it's a complete surprise. It is a complete surprise. So his friend is just gonna be like, oh my God, Bamboo after 20 years sent me this, this gift. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, he had so many wonderful stories. And I didn't, it's interesting because obviously going there, I sort of had a mission in some sense. Like I was meeting people that were relevant to the human design documentary and the history of human design and all these things. But I was really delighted to discover that I basically forgot about all of that. And, what I mean by that is, when you study the human needs, we all have a human need for significance, for feeling like we're doing something really important. We're doing important work. I'm an important person. I'm special. I'm doing something important. Look at these celebrities I know. Look at these important people I know and all this stuff. But we also have a human need for connection and love. And that's the need that you get met when you spend time with a friend. That's when you get to hang out with your mom or your dad, or you get to hang out with your sister or brother or kid or any of these things, right? That's the need you get met when you have a game night and play cards and, you're not doing anything important. You're just, the need for connection and love is being met. And it's funny because going in, I'm like, I'm going to meet Bamboo. He's a special person who's special for the history, all this. I didn't, afterwards, I met with him 3 times and we hung out for 3 or 4 hours each time. And the director of the film, Selena, would always be like, did you ask him to be in the film? I'm like, no, I forgot. I'm sorry. I just completely, did you ask him for stories about Ra? No, he told a couple, but I didn't really think to ask him, because it was just as soon as I got involved in the back and forth, I was just like, this guy's awesome. I don't want to bug him to work to think about stories about Ra. He's just a great guy. One thing that was very fascinating for me though, and this is a bit maybe controversial, I know that someone else who knows him didn't really like this idea much. I noticed that Bamboo had a lot of Ra's mannerisms. So many that he would say, for instance, or not. Or he would love to say what to do. Or he would talk about the good news, bad news. Or he would talk about all of these very mystical little things in a very similar intonation to Ra. And he would wear this little hat and this Nehru jacket, and he had a series of them, and he had different ones he would take, and all the mystical trappings and so on, in his beard and all of this. And the funny thing is, he's a 2/4. And Ra met him when Ra first came. The very first day he was in Ibiza, the very first day he got off the plane, he met Bamboo. And Bamboo's the one who invited him into the whole community in San Juan. Bamboo lived in the Ruina at one point. Bamboo made the masks, which were there during the encounter with the voice. I mean, Bamboo was sort of like the guy who shepherded Ra in. And Bamboo showed me a lot of unreleased photos of Ra from that time period that have never been released. I mean, Ra with long hair, bald on top, and long hair with his shirt off, or playing music, or doing all these different things. And he didn't look anything like he would look later. And years, but Bamboo looked the exact same. So years and years later, Ra slowly sort of maybe was influenced a bit by Bamboo. And it was really interesting to see how this 2-4, who's sort of living as a hermit for 43 years in the same little place, being an artist, you know, in San Juan, how Ra was somewhat influenced by him, I think. And yeah.
Other than Teresa, who's on the left of that
photo? Oh, that was Nisarg. Yeah, sorry, that's Nisarg there. Okay. Yeah. And so, on several occasions we got to go hang out with Bamboo. It was really nice. I got to go to his home. He invited me to his home for sunset viewing and to kind of show me a bunch of his photos and artwork. And he's also a projectionist. So starting in the 80s, he began throwing these full moon parties, and he was really bothered by people bringing artificial lights. So he didn't want people to bring artificial lights. But he didn't want to burn down the forest either with candles and fires and things. So he figured out how to bring these projectors and to project images onto the trees. And he said, I guess I can share, these were LSD parties, LSD full moon parties. He did say about that he said he used to do it with 100 people, and then 50, and then 20, and then 2, and now he only does it alone. That's the way he put it. But at that time, it was 100 people, and they were from all over the island, and these were the freaks of the island and the bohemians and so on. And there were actually many of them. A few of them were interviewed for the film, and they're all sort of iconic on the island in different ways. There's a fashion designer named Gisela, who's 84 years old, and everyone knows her. And her and Bamboo are always competing about things. Like Bamboo at one point said he would want to be paid for an interview, and then Gisela said, well, I will do it for free only because you wish to be paid. You know, it's like they're very competitive, you know. So, but he became a projectionist, and the first time he did it, someone came up to him and said, you know, I only took the acid 5 minutes ago and it's already working. Look at these trees, you know, because he had turned on the projections. And he actually gave me this to bring to Santa Fe, because in our discussions, we didn't talk much about human design or Ra or any of that. But he told me a lot of stories about Ibiza and what it was like then. And he also, up until the time of COVID, was a projectionist that was actually hired internationally. So he would go to like a Marrakesh, you know, Morocco hotel opening to do projections, and he would go to Germany and go all over the place. And I said, do you want to come to Santa Fe? And he said, yes. And I said, can you come? Can you fly? I mean, would you? Oh, yeah. And I said, well, when do you want to do it? He said, now? Like, do you want to go now? Like, I'm like, no, I can't. I need time. I need time to figure it out. And I was like, he's like, okay, next year. And I'm like, okay, let's do it next year. So he literally was just like as strong yes as possible to coming. And I said, how long would he go? And he said, I only buy one-way tickets. So I'm like, okay, well, we'll figure that out. Really fascinating man. When he was 15 years old, his parents, he's from Germany. He's like German Spanish, but his parents let him hitchhike all the way to Morocco. And they were very permissive. And he said that they were so supportive of him in everything he did and all of his artistic, you know, everything, that other kids were so controlled, and that he was allowed to sort of travel. And so from the age of 15 until about the time of COVID, he spent 6 months of the year traveling. And so he'd been to virtually every place on the whole planet. I mean, he told me stories about going from Africa to India and meeting the leader of the street gangs in India, who then walked him through the streets so nobody would mess with him, so they would all know that he's that he's an okay guy and all this stuff. So anyway, so he gave me this, question, comment?
Genoa said, am I recording this? Because he was really excited by it.
I have all these stories, and it's being recorded for Signpost, but I can tell you all these stories. I mean, I took a lot of notes, but he gave me this to help. So I already met randomly. I met with this has a special on him. I randomly met with an art curator who works with Site Santa Fe and also works with the city of Santa Fe, throwing events like AMP and things. And I showed her all this. We just were getting margaritas yesterday because we're friends, and I was back in town, and she was like, "Let's bring Bamboo to Santa Fe." I'm like, "Yes, this is what I want. Let's bring Bamboo to Santa Fe." This is not going to be very big, but anyway, he sent. Let me try to make it full screen here. This was him when he was a very young man. I can't really see. Ah, there we go. Oops. So that's him with the camera, and you know what I can do is I can share his Instagram. He has a lot of stuff on Instagram that is maybe better than this. But yeah, it was so delightful. It's like I went to meet him thinking, here's somebody historically notable for the history of human design, and then I left going like, this guy, he's more than an artist. He is a lover of life who is just so vital and so genuinely happy and genuinely sincere and earnest with everyone, and just, really a special guy. I can see why Ra liked him, and why they liked each other, and why Bamboo was sort of his, Ra's, he was his Virgil. At that point, Ra had just showed up in Ibiza and didn't know what he was doing there, and Bamboo sort of took him in and introduced him to the people that would be his friends. So very, very sweet stuff. But I'll share his Instagram. His Instagram has 1,111 followers. I really liked that when I saw it. I was the 1,111th. So. Maybe he has more now. I've been showing people his Instagram. Sorry, what were you saying?
He's a little bit young. He's a little bit younger than Ra, if he's 75 now.
Yeah, Ra would have been 76. He's 1 year younger, exactly. Well, 10 months. 10 months younger. Yeah, and he talked about that. And
Did you do his chart?
Yeah, someone else did. I think Therese. She showed me. It's a 2-4 generator. I only kind of glanced at it on a phone, so I wish I could tell you the rest. Oh, I have his birth info. I can share that in a moment, and we could even look. But here's some of, you can see his work at gallery.bamboo.de. It looks like he got one more follower. Look at that. And so these are, I don't know if I can make this any bigger. I guess it doesn't get larger. You can look yourself on the Instagram. But, these are trees that he's projecting on. And he also is a fashion designer and will design, these are some of his sculptures. And he will design clothing that's really unusual and then project on the clothing as well while people are dancing. He was really proud to say that this is not just Bamboo lights up Ibiza. The direct translation is Bamboo enlightens Ibiza. And he really likes that. So, some of his sculptures. So, I just feel like I got to discover a really, really interesting, guy who really embodies a lot of the spirit of that place. The sort of, still in some ways, the spirit of the 1960s. The spirit. This is a proof of concept, but these are. This is a costume he designed, showing from different angles with projections on the costume. Really. He had a whole history of doing a lot of photo work as well, before he got deep into projection work. And I think he was a little bit hurt by the human design community because he did have some amazing photos of Ra that he released with his watermark, and then someone in the community removed his watermark using AI, and he got a little bit offended by that. So he's still a little bit touchy about it because he's kind of like, he gave away the photos for free. He understood that he couldn't make money anymore. He used to make all his money on photos, and he did talk about how sad it was, how the world changed. He used to just be able to live off of the royalties of his photos. And then suddenly the royalties, he still has the check of the last royalty check he got. It went from like thousands of dollars a month down to $9. And he just put it up on the wall. It's just like a reminder there's no more money in royalties for photos. So he did give away a number of photos. And he was also saddened, though, that at one point he was working with Ra on a coffee table book biography of Ra's life. And he asked Ra for a very small sum of money for the photos. And Ra sort of said, no, you don't get a penny, kind of thing. These are photos of me. Like, how do you think how do you think you deserve something for this? And so he was just like, whatever. So, even friends can be like that sometimes with each other. Right. But he's a very sincere person. And I think he was just a little bit saddened that people removed his watermark because he was like, come on, like, I'm giving away these free photos. Why are you going to Photoshop out my watermark on them? It's like, it's in the corner, like his name in the corner of it. But anyway, pretty cool stuff. And he does have a lot of unreleased photos, very professionally done photos of Ra and the Ruina and all sorts of things that are just really, I do hope someday are released in a coffee table book, and that someone does does produce that, because it would be such a nice thing to own, to have these photos of that time period, as well as so many photos of just the other people in the community. I mean, at that point, it was before Ra's encounter with the voice or anything. It was just, he was just photographing people in the community. So he just has this whole picture of the 1980s in Ibiza, of this bohemian scene, and it's a cool scene. I mean, really cool people. Everyone in that community seems like each very unique, interesting people who ended up there through strange ways of just kind of like finding themselves on this island, you know, all becoming friends because of their shared outsider nature. So
I wish you had told me you were going to delve into the community this much, because I would have had a whole list of people that you could have met. Well,
you know, I'm probably gonna go back next October. I mean, I'm definitely going to go back next October. I'm probably going to go back before then, because I would love that. And if I have anything to say about it, I'm going to take the two of you with me. But, you know, now that I have it all dialed in, I even have a friend who has an extra apartment that she rents out but is often open, and she let me stay there for free. It was a whole apartment to myself. It was really nice. And so I'm definitely meeting some really good connections there, and people with the hookups. Not to mention that Loki is so well connected and just such a gentleman and such a sweet guy. Ra's son was very welcoming and supportive. He helped the film, you know, quite a bit, as well as the fundraiser. And he's, you know, it's such a small island in a way. Like, I went to an ecstatic dance and then ran into some of his friends there, and, you know, and they all know him. And, you know, it seems to me that it's kind of like Santa Fe, where once you're part of the community, everyone just knows everyone, and it is a very wholesome community. A lot of families there and things like that. So different than the image people might have of just like a party place. So.
What about Jiva?
Jiva doesn't live there. He's not on the island right now. I think he's in Germany, maybe. I don't know. We communicated online, and it was great. But
he's in university. Sure.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's it. Yeah. Something interesting that Richard Beaumont mentioned, and I have a bunch of fun Richard Beaumont stories I can tell. I mean, I have some really fun ones, but he said something really interesting, which he said, when you look at Jiva and Loki's body graphs together, Ra's two sons, that Loki has 59.6 and Jiva has 50.27, as well as 39.55 and 22. And he said this is basically creating the defense support foundation and then the powering up to the 12, and that you can really see how it's almost by design that they were there for Ra. But now they need another 12 because they've built the foundation and they have all of the support in place, but they need the sort of mouthpiece of mutation to step in and guide that. So anyway, or maybe guide's not the right word, but at least be the communicator that has that support. So that was an interesting perspective. Yeah. Bahiah commented, well, if you can go to the moon. Yeah. Yeah, no, talking to Bamboo, it was like one of those second line natural mystics where he would just say things. Like we didn't talk about human design at all, but at one point he was talking about just the world politics. He spent like 2 hours talking about the American political election and just very saddened by how things were going. At that point, I guess the election hadn't completed, but he was still just very dismayed and the turn in the world and everything of what was happening. And he was just saying how he'd looked out and he said that, the people in the world are marionettes and they have the strings, and the strings go all the way to the stars, and the stars have beams that go down, and the stars change and they make you move your arm to the left, and they change and you go to the right, and they change and they make you eat, and they change and they make you sleep. And this is the way he was describing it. It was really interesting just to like see a complete outsider who never really had any interest in human design or astrology or any of that, but he had his own sort of natural understanding of it. So, and then he did make his own oracle deck, which was, I guess I'll tell a couple stories about that. He doesn't sell them, but he does give them away. Although I think he doesn't have any more. He made, a few hundred of these. And it was from his time in Japan where he was making all of these, these kinds of symbols and so on, studying with a Japanese calligrapher. And he ended up making all these cards, and it'll have the symbol, and they're very small. The cards themselves are kind of like the Japanese size. If you've seen the old Japanese cards, they're much smaller than a normal playing card set. And they each have a symbol, and then they have one word written in sort of Japanese, calligraphic style. And the word will say harmony, or it'll say success, or it'll say flexibility, or one just says sex, for instance. And they just kind of, you get a card, and then, so you'll get a card of the day. And then they all have this symbol. I'll see if I can, it's a very simple symbol. It's an X. Yes.
Which one did you get?
The first day I got harmony, and the second day I got flexibility. And then the third day I didn't draw one because I was just at his home and he didn't have them. But I saw him on 2 days out in the market, and they were both great for that. And they all have on the back, this is not going to work, is it? That's that symbol.
Oh, yeah.
It's an X with 4 dots. And he made that symbol when he was 14 years old in the German Boy Scouts. And everyone had to make their own signature. They had to create their own signature, their own symbol, for the Boy Scouts. And that was the symbol he made for himself. And then later, when he made his cards, he put that on the back. So the back of each card, they're blank white, and they just have that symbol. And then he was at a Japanese restaurant of his friend Melchior, who's a really interesting guy as well. I can maybe tell a little bit about Melchior. And so Melchior is this Japanese restaurant, and it was only just a few years ago, and he saw that symbol on these sake bottles. And they asked the chef, who was Japanese, what does that symbol mean? And she said, oh, it's a traditional Japanese symbol that means harmony with the cosmos. He was like, wow, like he made that symbol when he was 14 and then later discovered that's what it is, and he'd been using it for years. And a few stories about his cards. He became positive that so he gave away all these cards. He loved making the cards. It was like a gift for people, and then he would give the readings. He would just like walk around. It was really cute to see him. He'd walk around the market and just say, pick a card, and someone would walk up, oh, what are those? Oh, pick one, and he would get their card of the day. But at one point, he became very struck by a thought he could not get rid of. And it was terrifying to him. It was, if the cards are wrong even once, he has to destroy them. And he has to tell everyone he's given them to destroy their cards. And so he waits, and then sure enough, around that time, he's in an auto accident, and it was 700 euros to fix the car, and he only had the worst, cheapest insurance. He said it was 20 euro a year. I'm like, how do you get car insurance for 20 euro a year? It's probably something like AAA or something, right? It wasn't full insurance. And so he thought, well, this is a good test. Let's see what the cards say. He picked the card, success. He goes, okay, well, let's see. So he fills out the paperwork. He emails it to the insurance company. Sure enough, 3 days later, he gets a reply, denied. He is crestfallen. The cards have lied. Success, denied? There's no way that he can, make this into something else, right? And so he just waits and waits, and he's very sad. And then 3 days later, with no action on his part, he gets another email. Confirmed, they're paying the entire thing. They made a mistake and they're happy to pay it, and he didn't have to do anything, and he was just overjoyed, and so he didn't destroy his cards. But to him, he said that was the ultimate confirmation. But he was telling me that story, and then it was really funny because he had a really funny synchronicity around that time. That day, we were all picking cards, and then I think Therese said, well, what card did you get today? And he said, I forgot. I haven't got a card today. Okay. And so he picks a card, and he gets the sex card. This is how I know that was one of the cards. And he goes, whatever. He's like, at my age, this is nothing, And he kind of ignores it. 5 minutes later, a beautiful young woman walks up to him, Bamboo. And he goes, yes. And she says, I found you. I came all the way to Ibiza. I brought my car here on a ferry. There were terrible floods in Spain. I've been through all these ordeals. You don't remember me? We met, 7 years ago, and this and that. Oh, okay. And then he said, and where are you staying? And she said, I'm living in my car. Can I stay with you? And he said, yes. And then, before any of that, she walked up to him, Bamboo. And then she came and gave him a big hug and a big smooch on the lips, and his eyes just went, like he looked like a monkey or something, he was so shocked. And then she was like, okay, I'm going to, I'll come back. I'm going to grab some things and all this. And then he was like, to me, this is sex. This is like that's like all he needs at this time. Like a nice conversation and a big, and a big kiss. And so it was really sweet to see. He was like, wow, like the cards knew, like, how did this happen, out of the blue? And then after that, he was telling a story about these women he knew. He had such amazing clothes. He used to be a fashion designer. And he said, I asked him about his jacket and his pants. And he said, oh, it's funny. So I knew these 7 Dutch women, and one of them, she had a boyfriend. And when I visited the boyfriend, I visited her one year, and the boyfriend gave me his pants. And these are such great pants. I've been wearing them ever since. They're like wool, like tan wool pants. And the next year I came back, and she had another lover. And I hugged this man and said, isn't it wonderful we love the same woman? And, he was much older and everything. I mean, it just means like, platonically, but still. And I said, and I love your coat. And the boyfriend took it off and gave me the coat. So I have the pants from one lover and the coat from another. And he wore them together, and they looked really good. So it's funny. I mean, I guess she has good taste in men with good fashion sense. But anyway, shortly after that, I don't believe it was this woman, but another from the group of the Dutch women, again, who he hadn't seen for many years, walking through the market, found him and said, Bamboo, I've been looking for you. Because the thing is, people know that they can find him on Sunday at the market. That's like his public day. He's very hard. He's a hermit. He's a 2-4. He's very hard to get a hold of any other time. But on Sunday from 11 to 2 p.m., you can find this man, and they all kind of know that, so they come looking for him. So, but so that was one of the stories about the cards, and then he had another story about. He had a few stories about the cards, but how they came to be, how he went to Japan, and I mean, it was clear to me that was his way of giving back. He really thought that the cards were something that he had made. He said he was frustrated by the tarot and by the other systems, that they were so confusing to him, and he wanted something very simple. So, the cards will just have, a very simple image like this, and then it'll just say a very simple word. And he really liked that was his sort of contribution back to society. Well, maybe I could talk a little bit about Melchior, since we're on the topic of interesting people. I don't know if you guys ever met Melchior. He would have been quite young. He's probably a little bit older than me. Let me I'll pull up his Instagram. So Melchior was one of Ra's students, but he was one of Ra's students in school, science class. And Ra taught him French, apparently very poorly. And, he was a kid when Ra was doing his summer gigs of just teaching at the school on Ibiza. So it wasn't like he was a human design student of Ra. But as I talked to him, I mean, I had a very wonderful connection with Melchior. Very deep connection, and I can share that in a moment because it was very, very powerful. This is Melchior. He's when I first met him, he was wearing this thing around his neck, and I said, "What is that?" Because Bamboo had one, and also Billy White, who I mentioned, had one, and Melchior, making a joke, said, "Oh, it's aerosol LSD. You're getting high right now just talking to me." That was the first thing he ever said to me. It just emanates LSD. So yeah, I mean, Melchior is a very interesting guy. He's a restaurant owner. And I would later find out that his parents were the Dutch couple that would, where Ra would go every Sunday for dinner. Because there was a period of time that Ra had no money and he was basically starving and living in the ruina. And he would go every Sunday for dinner. And this Dutch couple would feed him and record him they have tapes and tapes of Ra, all before his encounter with the voice. And in fact, it was the day of his encounter with the voice that he was coming from Melchior's parents' house back to the ruina. Mm-hmm. And even more interesting, Melchior's parents are very mystical. His father has a long white beard and a turban and white robes and all of this stuff. And they ended up moving to Mendocino, California. And Melchior had just visited them last year. I grew up in Mendocino, California. I mean, it's a very small town. It's a town of 5,000 people in Northern California, about 3 hours north of San Francisco on the coast. And so we really bonded on that. And he said, well, Melchior had just gone to Mendocino and he hopes to return next year. And I said, well, why don't you come to Santa Fe? And Bamboo is there. And Bamboo said, well, I'll be in Santa Fe. So, we can do this whole thing. So So we'll see how that comes together. But I guess maybe if you guys have energy for story time, is everyone doing okay with the stories? Are we good on story time? Okay. Then I'll do a little bit of story time here. So that was the first day I'd met Bamboo, and when I met him, Bamboo had a number of gifts for me. We had a mutual friend, Laura, who had kind of arranged for us to meet, and I didn't really have any gift for Bamboo. I just was so busy and running, and I didn't have time to get him a chocolate or anything. You know what I mean? I just kind of showed up. But I said, well, I could give you a couple of gifts. They're just, gifts of the mind or of the heart, And I said I could tell you about maybe something you might be curious about would be the cards of the Magi. And then he ended up telling me some stories. We kind of let it go. I didn't really push it. And in the story he told me, he said, actually, I've had a very hard day. And I said, really, why? And he said, well, I made probably something like this. He said, I made a piece of art for a friend, and I went to her. She owns a shop here, and I had it with me, and she was in the window, and she was on the phone, or she was with a customer. She said, go away. So I left. I came back 20 minutes later. She was on the phone. She wouldn't talk to me. I knocked. I just wanted to give it to her. And then she said, go away, Bamboo. Go away. And I got so sad and angry, I threw the art on the ground and shattered the glass. And I said, oh, that's really hard. And he said, and then I came back later. I picked it up. I threw away the glass, and I took the art out, and I gave it to someone else. And I said, wow, what was the lesson? And he said, well, it's that the gift is not always for who you think it's for. He made it for her, and he gave it to someone else. And so this is maybe 20 minutes, half hour after I'd mentioned all the cards of the Magi stuff. And, he kind of just glossed over it. Well, then Melchior comes up, and they start talking, and he introduces himself as Melchior. And I immediately clock that Melchior is one of the Magi, of the historical Magi, Casper and Melchior, and so on. So I'm like, well, this is interesting. This guy has a name of the Magi. Okay. So then we talk for a while, maybe an hour passes. Me and Melchior are really connecting well, and Bamboo, and they're all telling stories and laughing. And actually, Melchior he spends some of his time in Ibiza. He owns a Japanese restaurant there, Nagai, right outside of San Juan, but he also travels quite a bit. And anyway, we start talking more, and eventually it comes up what he's into. Around the same time, I think I mentioned it first. I mentioned the cards of the Magi. And then he says, oh, that's so interesting. I'm a numerologist. And I said, what kind? And he said, oh, I study all kinds of numerology. And I said, well, do you study the connection of numerology to the tarot? And he said, yes, my mother was a tarot reader for 35 years. And I said, really? And this is the mother, of course, that was good friends with Ra and would feed him and everything. And I said, okay. Do you know that the major arcana of the tarot are from the Chaldean tablets and the Chaldean numerology system, what is now modern-day Iraq, basically, Mesopotamia, Sumeria, sort of the Chaldean peoples, that their numerology system is planetary, where 0 is the cosmos, 1 is the sun, 2 is the moon, 3 is Jupiter, and so on. And if you look at the major arcana of the tarot, each of these numbers, like 6, the lovers, is Venus. And then 15, the devil, is also Venus, because 1 plus 5 is 6. And there's all this numerology. And he says, oh, yes, I study Chaldean numerology. And I was like, this guy is great. He knows Chaldean numerology? I never meet people the major arcana being the planetary archetypes. And then I said, well, because he was asking me, so what are the cards of the Magi then? And I said, well, they are the minor arcana. And they have more to do with the Pythagorean numerology from, Pythagoras and the pre-Socratics and the Greeks, and the birthplace of Western civilization. If we think of Mesopotamia as the birthplace of Eastern and sort of, and then the birthplace of Western civilization. And I said, and the minor arcana contain within them the mathematics of the annual cycle of not only the sun, but also the moon. The 13 cards per suit and the 13 lunar months, the 12 court cards and the 12 solar months, the 52 cards in the deck and the 52 weeks. You add up the value of the cards, and they ends up being 364 plus the Joker and all of this. And he was like, wow, that's so profound. And you know what? You take the major arcana of the Chaldean, of the cosmic, connecting to the planets, the minor arcana of the Pythagorean, of the earthly, the sun and the moon, and the earthly cycle, and you put them together, and they met here on this island with the Phoenicians. And I was like, well done, Melchior, well done. That this was the place that was the melting point and the meeting point of the Eastern and Western wisdom traditions that combined the two. And he believes was the true birthplace of the Tarot. So really, I mean, I was like, I thought I was going to teach him something, couldn't teach him anything. Maybe I taught him like a little something, but he's literally, I mean, he is a quantum energy alchemist, mind body energy, Ibiza sunset lover, numerologist. That's what he has as his. So really, really cool guy. And he did tell some Ra stories. He said that he believes he got one of Ra's last extended long readings completely by chance because Ra had given him readings growing up and he'd always carried around a body graph. And he said that about 9 years after Ra had stopped giving extended readings, they were in Barcelona together shortly before Ra's death at a 4-hour layover, and they were just chatting, and Melchior pulled out his body graph, and Ra gave him a very extended, very deep reading for their 4-hour layover in Barcelona. And I asked what Ra said, and he said Ra told him that that Melchior would found a new religion. And I asked if he had, and he said he hasn't yet, but he thinks about it a lot. So that was kind of an interesting little thing. But yeah, he was just such a cool guy, a sweet guy, and we really connected over his, family living in Mendocino where I grew up, and all this stuff. And so we definitely talked about staying in touch, and hopefully maybe he can visit when Bamboo's visiting and come to Santa Fe sometime. And really cool guy. So. Oh, I'm glad people are loving the stories. I see Pocket said she loves stories. Good. Well, those are some of the, I really liked the meeting of East and West in the Phoenician peoples in Ibiza. I could definitely have a coffee break. I have some fun notes on the Phoenician people. Maybe that would be a good place to take a little break. Very short notes. I spent a lot of time at the, I went to the,
dear. I have another appointment coming up at 4, so I'm going to leave a recording on. I have an audio recording on, and
Great.
Maybe Genwa can come back and forth.
Absolutely, and I'm also going to put this whole recording on the Signpost video archive, and I can remember to email it to you as well, so you don't have to go on Discord.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can. There we go. Will this work? Okay. Just a moment here. I'm going to see how to make a slideshow of some of these images from the Puig de Molins, which is the museum necropolis there that has a lot of Phoenician information and also artifacts. And I have some notes. Let me see if I can. I wonder if this will share. Okay, this might work. Okay, I'm going to see if this sharing works. I'm sharing a preview. I've never tried this before on Zoom, but let's see if it looks like it'll share. Okay, everyone see Tanit there? She's the goddess of the island. And then if I change, okay, yeah, it is working. So this is the museum necropolis. These are all Phoenician artifacts. They have 3 sections: the Phoenician section, which were the first peoples to populate the island; the Punic section, which were the second peoples later; and then the Roman section, which were the last. And these are all from the Phoenician section. So these are all roughly 800 to 200 BC. These are some of the interesting artifacts they've found from the Phoenician times.
Oops, you're still muted.
Sorry. Yeah, they don't know. Thank you. I muted on the microphone. That's right, because I was coughing. But they don't know who this guy was, this guy in the corner. They call him Guapo, which just means handsome. So these are some of the bracelets of the Phoenician peoples. I'm going to see if I can, hopefully, yeah, okay, good. It's still sharing. Okay, I'm going to find my notes that I learned. So I ended up finding a really cool book on the Puig de Molins necropolis from 1969. I found it at a used bookstore on the island, or a used bookseller, I should say. Most of the sellers are at the markets, so I found it at the Las Dalias hippie market. And I'm actually going to donate it to them. I took it back with me so I could make some scans because it has such amazing images. But I showed the people at the museum, and they lost their mind and like got like all the people to come look because they'd never seen it. And it's literally a book from the 60s of their artifacts, an official book made by their museum that they just never saw because they didn't have any copies of it. So I'm going to actually donate it to the museum, but it's a good mission for me to return to Ibiza to donate it to them. So let me see. Okay. Just a moment here. I definitely have my Phoenician notes. I took some notes from what I could piece together. Here we go. Okay, so some very interesting things. So they really liked two figures. One is Iboshim, and then they also sometimes translate it Ebusus. He was one of the sort of gods of the island. I'm going to put this in the chat here. And then Tanit Demeter. So Tanit, who we saw before, she's been connected to Demeter. Let me find a photo of her. There's Tanit. There's a cave to the goddess Tanit there. Okay, so here is one of the very interesting things. They have two terms, Nefesh and Barlat. And Nefesh and Barlat have been translated as soul and spirit, but they're not really sure how to translate these. I think we would translate them as personality and design crystal. I hope I got a photo of the two urns. What they would do is a very interesting funeral rite, and this is something that Ra actually mentions in a couple of places, but I was able to confirm, and it was really nice to be able to confirm because sometimes Ra says something and you're like, where did that come from? And in this case, I know exactly where it came from, the museum here, because it was kind of confirmed by them. And so, okay, that's something different. So Nefesh and Barlat, I'll put those in the chats there. Soul and spirit, roughly translated, but essentially I'll explain kind of how they were used in the texts because they found these, cuneiform tablets and so on. And at death, the funeral rite, there were a lot of things they would do. They would they would do various things to the body and the bones. They would take the bones and they would separate the bones into two piles and clean them and burn them. And then eventually they would take these two separated piles of bones and basically 50-50 put half the bones in an urn that would be above ground. That would they said was for Nefesh, the Nefesh, which was one of the two souls basically, to return to space. And they would take the second pile of burned bones, bone ash, and they would put it in an urn and bury it in the ground and say that was Barlat, and it would return to the center of the earth. Does this sound familiar to anyone? I mean, this is literally human design cosmology. I won't say cosmology 101, maybe more like cosmology 201, but still, this is one of the core aspects of human design cosmology is that we have a personality crystal and a design crystal, and the personality crystal returns to its bundle in the 16 prime crystal bundles at the outer edges of our atmosphere, that's sort of creating the crystal lattice around the Earth, and that the design crystal returns into the Earth's mantle to be part of the design crystal bundle. And so there it is, over 2,000 years ago in the Phoenician funerary rites, this distinction between Nefesh and Barlat and the two souls, the one that returns to the heavens and the one that goes to the earth. Pretty interesting stuff. I wonder, I guess that's it for images that I have from them. I have a few other notes. Sheol was their name for heaven or the promised land where the soul transcends. They used fire to prevent the soul from being trapped in Mot, the land of the dead. Melgart was the god of fertility and the protector of seafarers. They believed that the spirit would rise and would transcend. It transcends and ascends to reach the afterlife, whereas Mother Earth receives the body transformed by fire as splinters. Oh, interesting. Lasita said Nefesh has an online translation from Hebrew, the life force or living, breathing being. Oh, that's incredible. I never even thought to look for other connections, but I mean that's very incredible. Thank you for that. Or is this now Genoa? Well, either way, I know you're on the same account now.
I hadn't quite
Oh,
left.
it's you. Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay, it is Lasita. Good. Okay.
I don't know whether Barlat is Hebrew because I haven't ever heard the word before, but I do speak basic Hebrew, and I had heard the word nefesh before.
That's wow. Well, I'm very grateful that you were able to make that connection. What a cool connection there.
Can I say something? 'Cause
Please,
I
absolutely. Yeah.
Sorry, I can't do it light at night. I speak Farsi, Persian, and it's like Arabic. And to say breath of life, we say nafas. So it's the
Oh my
same
word. Oh my word. These are must be like, and it makes sense that these seafaring people that were sort of blending different cultures and sort of, because the Phoenicians got into all sorts of places. They were a seafaring people who really traveled and maybe brought some of these words and customs and things with them. It's so interesting to see. I mean, thank you for that. That's very cool. I'm going to just paste in the rest of my little notes here that I took. Baal was the god of rain and fertility. The splinters of bone recovered from burned remains were placed in an urn placed in the earth. These were just, okay, that's kind of saying the same thing. Batalis is the name for a pillar to show where the urn was placed. And only relatives who died together could share the same grave. These were just some of my random notes that I took on my phone from being at the at the museum. They have these little videos you can watch, and also I was talking with some of the museum attendees, which they were very excited to share their knowledge of the Phoenicians, and I was asking them questions and stuff. So definitely for each of you, when you visit Ibiza, which I think I hope each of you will, or all of you will, if you haven't already, make sure to go to the museum, Puig de Molins, the museum Necropolis. It's really incredible stuff there. Okay, I'm going to take a short break. I'm going to put up this image here, and I'm going to let people conjecture about what this image is, and I'll be back in about 5 minutes. I'm just going to make a coffee. I'll be back at the top of the hour. All right. Anyone figure out or have a guess of what this might be a picture of? I'm just heating up some water for the coffee right now, so I'll go grab it. But let's see. Let me see if I have any more pictures in here. Let's see. I have one more here. Here's another similar picture. Okay.
I'm gonna guess it's the Ruina.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So this is something that might be sensitive information, but I don't think so. I mean, essentially, I'm going to say, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, Bahiah. There is like spiritual visits to spiritual sites, sacred sites, and things like that. I will say that people who are trying to visit the site of the Ruina, we are in luck because we don't actually have to go to that site anymore. And I'll explain why. So let me see if I can find the images. I'm going to go grab my coffee. But essentially, there were some surprises. The first surprise is that for about 20 years now, it's been thought that the Ruina was completely destroyed. Maybe 15 years. I don't know exactly how long. I mean, this has just been kind of the assumption. I mean, everything I've ever heard, everything everyone's ever said, what Ra himself said was that the man who owned the home there, where the Ruina was in the back, had come to Ra at one point and said, hey, people keep... it's really annoying having this Ruina. People keep sleeping in it. And it's, by the way, it's not people that are interested in human design. It's just like hippies. Like Ibiza has a lot of hippies, okay? It has a lot of people who are just looking for shelter, and they literally just found shelter in this guy's backyard. And he's like, I want to actually knock it down and put in a guest house. And Ra said, nothing would make me happier. Go for it. And so then the Ruina was flattened, and there was, nothing left of it, and it was replaced with a guest home. Well, I'm going to show a few pictures and videos. The one thing that I do want to say as a caveat is I do not want people going looking for the Ruina. I am not going to give the information of where it is or anything, but we are in luck because there's something better. There's something better than the Ruina. And you might not believe me, but it is. It really is. And I'll get to that after. So sorry for being so cagey about it. First, maybe I'll show how we discovered on October 23rd, 2024, that the Ruina was not knocked down. Not entirely. Okay. 1 second here. I'm just getting a little... Okay. So let's see if the, let me see if I can do it by date modified. Okay, this should work. So let me see if I can share. Hopefully I can share all of the video and everything. I'm going to go grab my coffee. And then we'll get to story time about the Ruina. This was a little bit of human design history in the making. So there was a group of us meeting up. There's Sienna's on the left. Jacob, Loki's good friend, is sitting at the table. Betty is in the white with the hat. She's responsible for Raw TV. She's the Jovian Archive social media manager. Loki is sort of standing talking to Darshana. And then we have B, and then we have Layla and Beatrice in this photo. We're all basically on a little field trip where we were going to go near the site of the Ruina to feel the energy of the Ruina, basically. I'm going to go grab my coffee, and then I'll be right back. So our idea was to do this little nature walk near the Ruina because there's a road that we knew that was basically the closest road. And by the way, the site of the Ruina is on private property, and so out of respect for the owners of the home and everything like that, please, if you do end up just hunting around these back roads of Ibiza, stay on the roads, just out of respect, And I'd been there a couple years previous, and sort of gone down this road and this nature trail. So I knew, okay, yeah, there's a little nature trail. There's a little hike we can take on this road. And let's just see if we notice the energy. And by the way, as I was saying kind of before we started on all the Ibiza stuff, you do feel the energy in Ibiza. This was one of the first things I was saying, Bahiah, when you were asking about, did we get to go to like sacred sites? I'm like, yeah, they're all over. They're not only human design sacred sites, they're Phoenician sacred sites and things like that. And so absolutely, even when you just get close to this part of the island, like I almost feel like I'm having an anxiety attack when I get close to it, especially the first couple times when I haven't been there for a while. It happened to me 2 years ago. It happened to me last month when I went there. It happened multiple times. I was once in a car and we were just happened to be driving near there and I started to feel a little panicked. And then I was like, wait, where are we? And I looked out the window and we were right by this area. I just wasn't paying attention and didn't realize that we were driving near there. So it literally is this energetic vortex point. So this is us walking to the nature walk, going on a little walk. And this is the home where I was told by Locanand Diaz that this is the home that replaced the ruina. And actually that the pillar, his joke was to see that there's a pillar right in front of a window there. What an unusual place for a pillar, right? Right in front of a window. Oops. Well, that's a little bit later. Sorry about that. Just a second. Where is it? Okay. Yeah. So that's a weird place for a pillar right in front of this window. And, Alok's joke was, well, there was a cistern in the ruina, which requires quite a deep well, basically. And because of that, he thought that the earth wasn't strong enough. And so they had to put the pillar to hold up, the roof there. And that was sort of the final revenge of the design crystal, of like the form principle getting its revenge, like against the folly of humans who want to build. It's like, yeah, you have to put a pillar in front of your window then. So Betty, bless her, she's a 6'3" manifesting generator, very charismatic, 3420, very heavily defined. I think she has 8 centers defined. Really cool person. She's the founder of Raw TV. So we were standing with the group out on the road, and she asked me to kind of point out as far as I'd gotten, which was this house here. And I said, well, let's not bother them, but yeah, we could go a little closer. Sure. And she said, you know what? Let's just go talk to them. And I said, okay, well, if you want to, yeah, go talk to them. So this is her talking to them. She knocked on their door. And, this is her. She's like, there's nobody. She's like, there's nobody home or something. And then she's talking to them. And and sure enough, these were the neighbors of the guy where the ruina was. And he invited us back, the owner, who's a really nice guy, and said, oh, yeah, I'll show you this ruina thing you're interested in. Let's do it. I'll just mute it here. So he's taking us into his neighbor's home, and this is the guest house. And again, please do not go here looking for it. You can see what a private space it is. And we asked the neighbors if it's okay that we filmed a little bit and so on, and they said it's fine, and so it's no problem to share this. But again, they're really sweet people. Ed and Sammy, maybe I shouldn't even say their names, but privacy, whatever. You don't have their last names. It's okay. Really, really sweet people. We guaranteed them that we are not going to publicly divulge this location's address. We guaranteed we're not going to share their phone numbers with people. We guaranteed that nobody's going to just show up here. We guaranteed that we're not going to blow up their spot, So this is purely, I'm happy to share it with you guys, and then I'll tell you why you don't need to go to this site. So this is not the ruina, of course. This is the guest house that replaced the ruina. But you're about to see something interesting. So this is the guest house that they built, but it's very, very hard to get a building permit in Ibiza. So what they decided to do was, let me see if I can find a better picture. Sorry, these might be slightly out of order. This is basically behind, there's the cistern. This wall here that we're looking at is one of the walls of that last structure we saw in the photo. So this is what's left of the ruina. And it's not nothing. It's a whole room. It's a whole room, including the cistern. So we were all shocked. At this point, it was just Betty and myself.
Wow.
Yeah. yeah, you can kind of see, sorry about the bad camera work there. You can kind of see that's Betty and the neighbor, and then you can see that is where I came out of, is next to the guest home. So rather than what Ross said, which is that the ruina was flattened, the real truth is that it was not flattened. It was, it was half flattened, and the wall was sort of kept there. And so what we did was we came back and talked to everybody, and then Betty had this amazing idea. She said, who has money? Let's go back and offer them 100 euros to bring everybody there. And that's actually what we did. And again, they don't want to make a business out of giving tours to people. And thankfully, if you want to go and experience the energy of the ruina, you don't have to. Because I'll explain in a moment that there's a very sacred site around 300 meters away from right where we're standing in this photo. You can actually, you can see it from here. You can see here from there rather. And I'll explain that in a little bit, because it's shocking to me that this other spiritual sacred site emerged about 7 years ago within 300 meters of the ruina. I mean, shocking. And I'll explain what that is in a minute. This is Loki, Sienna, Darshana, and Billy White. And this was us kind of talking about so the ruina's still there, guys. And then, and that's when Betty said, hey, let's go offer them 100 euro. And we did. And we brought everyone in there. So, and you can see that they just have some, old benches and chairs and things that they were basically using it as a storage unit. So these are some of the photos here. Our phones kept turning off. It was really interesting. One person, Sonia, had a somewhat mystical experience. Oh yeah, it's like, please don't drop the phone in the cistern. We were trying to get some photos down in the cistern. But Sonia had a somewhat mystical meditative experience there. She was there later with permission from the owners, pretty much by herself. Maybe she had one other person with her. And she had a rather mystical experience during her meditation. Other people there, 3 of us, had our phones turn off randomly or blank out or flash. So that was really unusual. We were getting a lot of weird electrical things happening. But I will explain in a moment why you don't have to feel like you missed out if you don't get to go to the physical ruina itself, because humanity is very lucky that a group of people who have nothing to do with human design created a modern day sacred site 300 meters from here with no knowledge of this. So, I mean, you can't make this stuff up, and I'll explain that in just a moment. You really can't make this stuff up. That's Ramon. He's wonderful. He's a 5-1 generator who was kind of our AV guy. Yeah. Yeah, Layla, that's Billy in the background. Yeah, so I mean, a very exciting day, but I also don't want people to have the idea that, oh my God, these people got to experience something that we're not going to get to experience. If you visit Ibiza, you can go to a sacred site that I think is actually probably the center of the ley line network, 300 meters from here, and you can experience exactly the energy that is here, probably even stronger. I'm not joking, even stronger. I do believe it's part of a ley line network, if we can call it ley lines, dragon lines, however you want to call it. And that's Loki and Sienna. There's Aaron in the front, some of the folks in the back. And, wait a minute. There we go. Yeah, there's Loki. Nice big smiles. So, okay, so any questions so far? Then I want to show this other sacred site. Let me check the chat. I have not been reading the chats. Pockets just said that's so awesome. Okay, great. So yeah, any comments, questions, anything? Otherwise, I'm going to talk about the sacred site nearby the ruina. So that way, if or when you visit Ibiza, if I'm not there to take you there, you will know about it yourself. Yeah, I'm definitely going to make like a PDF of must-visit places when you go to Ibiza. I'll make a little tour guide PDF for, in case I'm not there, of like Jonah's recommendations for places to go. Okay. Cool. I'm glad we got to check that out. So, yeah, just a minute here. So there's a large presence of people involved with Cirque du Soleil on the island. Cirque du Soleil, the surreal, semi-mystical, performance art, acrobatics circus, right? And one of the founders, Guy de Liberty, actually lives on the island and was one of the financiers of Time and Space, which is a very cool visionary earthwork Stonehenge type thing. People nickname it Stonehenge because it's a number of standing stones using the Fibonacci sequence and divine proportions and so on. And another is a man that goes simply by the name G. His name is Gary, but he goes by G. And I love this because, of course, the G Center. The G is a sacred spiral, right? And I love that there's a guy named G who, after getting his money from Cirque du Soleil, moved to Ibiza and started an intentional community called Crystal Mountain and brought hundreds of thousands of dollars of massive crystals, including rose quartz the size of Volkswagen bugs, onto this land that he purchased 300 meters from the Ruina. So, lucky for us, we don't have to go to the site of the Ruina. We can go to Crystal Mountain, the home of the Crystal Temple, Garden Eden, the New Earth. Contributors create magic and rise awareness together. That's what it says here. And this is one of the sacred trees at Crystal Mountain. You can see some of the people here. Crystal Mountain Ibiza is their Instagram. There's a woman named Bahiah who has lived there since the beginning for 7 years now. She's a reflector and she gives tours. And even though it's not a restaurant, they have this amazing chef, Franco. That was him actually in the graphic there. And they will give you meals sort of on a prefix menu for 44 euros, including the tour and including like a multi-course meal and drinks and everything. Non-alcoholic drinks, very high vibe. And you can basically book online. If you go to their link tree here, if you're in Ibiza, you can book on their calendar, experience Crystal Mountain for 44 euros. You can book an intimate lunch or dinner there. And literally, you are as close as you can physically get to the site of the Ruina. And there's a place called Crystal Mountain, Crystals of Consciousness, made by a guy named G, like the G Center, that's literally in this like energy vortex power spot where people just start shaking there and people start crying and people feel energy coursing through them from their feet to their crown. I mean, it really is a powerful, powerful place. And the energy here doesn't feel any different than the energy in the Ruina. It just feels stronger at Crystal Mountain. I'm sure it's helped by the fact they have all of these crystal chairs and they have rose quartz the size of Volkswagen bugs, and hundreds of thousands of dollars of crystals that they've brought in, all from India. They brought them all from one location in India. So this is sort of the silver lining, is like, no, you can't arrange a visit to the Ruina, but yes, you can arrange a visit to Crystal Mountain, which is a sacred site built by a man named G, which, by the way, he's now named the mountain Crystal Mountain. The mountain the Ruina's on. It was never called Crystal Mountain. And then 7 years ago, he founded this community, and now people call it Crystal Mountain. So how perfect that the actual mountain where the Ruina is on is now named Crystal Mountain. I mean, you really can't make this stuff up. From people who don't have any idea of human design. Much. Billy has given them a few readings. Billy's been going there for 7 years. So thanks, Billy, for making the connections and all of that. But yeah, I mean, it's a really special group of people. They have a baby grand piano there. I got to play some piano. That was really nice. They have a couple people learning piano. a number of instruments. They have a sauna. They have events there. Yeah, they have a lot of apophyllite. Apophyllite is one of the main crystals they have there. And then a lot of rose quartz. Obviously, there's some amethyst. Yeah, a number of different things, but mainly how do you say it? Those are Sisbite. I want to look up, because they have so much of it, I'm actually curious to look up apophyllite and to see what apophyllite is about. I've never really learned about it. I'll write it here for people who are curious. Apophyllite. Yeah, so anyway, that's sort of the silver lining. No, the arena is not open to the public. Yes, you can go experience the energy at a place called Crystal Mountain, where you can have an amazing lunch and get a tour and hang out for hours and chill out on the massive crystals and play music with the people of the intentional community who live there. I actually met someone in the human design community in Ibiza who had previously lived there. So sometimes they have spots open up and you can actually live there for a period of time. So I'm going to read about apophyllite, and then also with stillbite. Stillbite is the other one. So apophyllite with stillbite is one of these are the two. Apophyllite comes from Greek for flake off. It's believed to calm the mind. Yeah, some of these were so fragile that just little subtle vibrations would cause them to flake off. And so they have them behind glass. It's believed to cleanse negative thoughts. This is from tinyrituals.co. Healing properties. It's a spiritually potent stone that clears negative energy, removes emotional blockages, reduces stress and anxiety, taps into hidden psychic powers, and enhances clairvoyance and deepens spiritual practice. It connects individuals to the higher realms, astral travel, angels, and expanding consciousness. Yeah, and they sell crystals there too, by the way. And when you pay for the tour, which, as I mentioned, the meal and the tour together are €44, and then you also get a discount at the shop. So pretty cool what they're doing there. Yeah, okay. I'm seeing some photos of apophyllite. I'm not sharing it because you can look it up yourself if you're curious to learn more. All right. Well, how are people feeling? I think that was, we went pretty deep in the stories there. We can change gears. I have way more Ibiza stories, but I think that was quite a few for now. Maybe pick up the Ibiza stories again next time, and we could look at some other topics. I had a few topics listed. I don't know how people are doing on energy levels, if people need breaks, or we just keep going. I do have a few topics that I picked just in case we want to go into things outside of simply story time, although story time is always fun. If you all have any questions about Ibiza, I guess the one thing I didn't really get to do was show the map of Ibiza much. I had wanted to show, yeah, here we go. Let me just show that really quick again, and then that way people can start to get oriented in case, hopefully this is kind of a sales pitch for your future visit to Ibiza, because I think it's a really special, magical place, and definitely worth visiting. So this is the island. You know, as you can see, I did my best on my little version of doing the same thing there. You can see some of the hearts I've put there and things like that. So right here in the bottom of the island, this is where you arrive. This is the airport and the main old town, and there's something called Dalt Villa, which is a really cool walled town. There's some really good hotels here. If anyone does want to go there, reach out to me and I will recommend some very affordable, cool hotels in the old town with cobblestone streets and things like that. From there, you can go north to Santa Gertrudis, which is right in the heart of the island. This is sort of the health center of the island. You have Wild Beets, which is all plant-based cuisine, vegan restaurant, Piccadilly, which is also plant-based, really good. And then nearby you have Juntos Farm, which is an awesome permaculture sort of farm thing that has events every Saturday, very wholesome, and they have music and speakers on things like permaculture, and it's just really, really high vibe. This whole area is such a high vibe area. And then you keep going north from there. Yeah, this is Junto's farm. I wonder if they have any pictures. Not much here. But you keep going north of there, you find Espiver de Can Besoro, which is the big tree that to me is sort of the heart of the island. This is the tree where Ra recorded his encounter with the voice. It's like a tree that looks like how a kid imagines a tree in a fantasy storybook, you know? And so that's right there. And that, to me, even though it's kind of more in the north part of the island, that's kind of like the heart hub of the island. Santa Gertrudis and the tree Espiver de Can Besoro are kind of like the heart of the island. To the west, you have some modern-day sacred sites like the Time and Space Monument that I mentioned, which is kind of like its own Stonehenge a little bit. And you also have Las Puertas, these doors. You know, Ra loved the freestanding doors in China and Korea and places, the gates, really. I wonder why can't I find Las Puertas? Las Puertas de Can Soleil, there they are. I'll save that to my favorites. So these are these freestanding gateway doors that people visit as well that are pretty cool. Yeah, right by the... So a lot of sacred sites all over the island. Very, very cool places to visit. The west coast of the island in general is more built up with resorts because it's the sunset side, and you find a lot of British people and so on all in this area. Nothing against that. There's some really beautiful beaches, Cala d'Ort. There's Atlantis, is a sort of a cove where dolphins go. You'll find these, this is basically Atlantis. You'll find a lot of interesting, they call them pirate towers all over the island. So here's like Torre de Savinar, historical landmark. They don't have a good photo of it, do they? Well, anyway, these are these pirate towers, and what would happen is pirates would attack Ibiza. So all of the townspeople would go into these towers, and they would go up these 30-foot rope ladders and then pull all the ladders up. And they had enough food and drink in the towers to stay there for like 6 months, so they could completely escape, you know, from the pirates and so on. So it was pretty cool. And in the towers, there are something like 12 of them around the island, and they're all in view of each other. Like here's another one. Yeah, here's what they look like. And so these pirate towers, sorry about that. And these are, you can see the door. There's the door like 30 feet up, you know. And they're all in sight of each other, so they could light a fire when the pirates are coming, so that each one would light a fire, and then everybody would know, okay, it's time to get to the pirate tower and to go up, you know, so you don't get killed or something. So this particular one here is right by where the land bridge used to be to get to Formentera. And apparently, I didn't get to see them, but apparently in September, October, there are a ton of flamingos there. So I'm hoping to go back next year and see the flamingos. But in any case, you find some really beautiful, beautiful nature, beautiful history. This is Esvedra. Esvedra is a very cool rock that people get a very interesting vibe from. Definitely it has a mystical look to it. It looks sort of different, you know, just this massive rock jutting out of the ocean. So, yeah, a lot of love for Esvedra. Let's see. So that's the west part of the island. San Antonio as they call it. That's sort of the British stronghold in the island. A lot of tourists there. Then you go more to the east and you go to Santa Eulalia. That's the French-Italian area. Really like it there. Some really nice city streets with no cars on them and just lots of little restaurants. Like they close the cars, they close them from cars. Going on to Escanar, this is one of my favorite areas. They have a really great market there on Wednesdays. If I lived in the island, I would probably live in San Juan because it's mountains and I just like it. It's so cool. But my second favorite place would probably be Escanar. This is my favorite restaurant in the area. It's called Can Soldat, I believe. Oh, what's that? Okay, I guess. Where's Can Soldat? Come on. It's a really great little restaurant. There it is. La Finca Can Soldat. Really cute place. A lot of indoor, outdoor spaces that I really like. I'm landscape, not hardscape. So I love when this is all outdoor, but it's covered. So you can stay warm, but you're kind of in an outdoor area. Really cool. And they have a lot of live music there. And so this is one of my favorite spots in the island. I probably ate there 5 times. I know one of Kalima's favorite spots too. Her and Joe ate there, 3 times, 4 times? Not that it's a competition, but yeah, really, really good. Okay, well, I think we've looked at enough of Ibiza. I guess, maybe the last thing I'll say is just going to the north. I stayed in Cala de San Vincent. That was a really sweet place to stay. I was right out here on this point. I didn't get to meet him, but the people that who owned the place where I was staying said that one of my neighbors is Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin fame, and that he was always spotted walking his dogs there. Sort of wanted to escape from the hustle and bustle of the busier parts of the island. This here is a sacred site, the cave of the goddess Tanit. And then the town of San Juan, really wonderful little town. San Juan de la Brita. Okay, well, let's jump over to another topic then, if people are still having the energy to continue on. I took a few notes of things we could look at today. So let me see what looks good. Yeah, I think I have them right here. Yeah, it's November 11th. Perfect. Okay, so we talked about Melchior, bamboo. Here's one. I'm currently using it as a stand for my laptop. This book that I have not yet read, but I'm very interested in digging into. And I know that Lasita and Genoa have been looking at it as well. This is by Benabel Wen. And this is I Ching, the Oracle. I found out about it because my friend Amber Rubottom picked up a copy and highly recommended it. It says, whether you're new to the I Ching or an experienced occultist, I Ching, the Oracle, will deepen your understanding of esoteric Taoism, highlighting the 2 main schools of interpretation, image and numbers, and meanings and principles. So image and number is one, meaning and principles the other, and exploring Taoist cosmology, mysticism, ritual practice, and the shamanic origins of the I Ching. Wen provides you with everything you need to apply the I Ching for life guidance, spiritual cultivation, and ancestral connection. Through in-depth annotations, cultural, historical references, and mystical practices, Wen amplifies the wisdom, both profound and practical, of the 3,000-year-old text. She includes aspects of the I Ching that have never been translated into English, offering fresh perspectives on a classic work. Rooted in her experience and knowledge as a Taiwanese-American occultist and Buddhist with deep family ties to Taoist mysticism, Wen's groundbreaking translation is accompanied by a critical analysis of earlier I Ching transmissions. So, yes, please. This is definitely up my alley, right? So I haven't read this yet, but I was going to just take a look at it and maybe read some from it, or I don't know, just sort of bring this up as something that is worthy of further investigation. We can always return to it later when I've had more time with it. Oh my God, so I haven't even opened it yet. On page 74, Science, Math, and the Genetic Code, followed by 82, Taoist Mysticism and Magic. Very cool. Let's go to 74. Let's see Science, Math, and the Genetic Code. Oh, and I love how many images are in the book as well. I love a book with a lot of images. Okay. Interpreting the hexagrams. Huh. Now, I'm also happy to open up to any group discussion. I mean, I will say I had a wonderful time telling the stories. At this point, you know, it's always nice to chat and to have, you know, more of a discussion as well. So if we want to, we certainly can. Otherwise, you know, I'll just kind of keep plodding along at my pace, and hopefully people are enjoying it. Wow. She's done some really interesting work, definitely connecting to the esoteric. The Kabbalistic four worlds in the trigrams. Looking at the Kabbalistic world of Ashaya, which connects to pentacles and discs of the tarot, Yetzirah, the swords, Bahiah, the cups, and Atzula, which is wands, and how this relates to mountain, wind, lake, and thunder, or earth, air, water, and fire. Pretty cool. Crowley's Tarot and the I Ching correspondences. The Knight of Wands corresponding to hexagram 51, which is the Prince of Wands. Yeah, these are kind of fun. Thank you, Richard. Yeah, thanks for being on, for the message. Wait, I see. No, I'm sorry. Knight of Wands is not the Prince of Wands. It's the King of Wands. The Fire of Fire, hexagram 51. So the King of Wands relating to hexagram 51. The Queen of Wands relates to hexagram 17. So yeah, depending on how you associate these, I could be seen as the Queen of Wands in the cards of the Magi system. So interesting to make the relationships there. This is going to need a lot more, further exploration. Leibniz's binary calculus and the Bagua. All right, and some connections to DNA. This is what we like to see. This is nice to see people outside of human design making connections between the I Ching and the human genetic code. Of course, these connections have been made many times. There are many scholarly articles out there on it. There are many such associations. It'll be interesting to see. Okay, yeah, she's drawing on the work of Johnson F. Yan from 1991. I've seen that one before. And then she's also showing Yang Li from 1998, who they both made different associations between which is which, basically, right? So ATCG being the fundamental nucleotides and which diagram they associate to. There's not really a consensus, but wow, this is going to be really fun to dig into. So I'm going to have to find a PDF of this book because I'll be traveling, and I know I'm going to want to read this, and I don't really want to lug this book around with me while I travel, but I love that we live in a time where this kind of thing is being supported, really. All right. Well, very interesting. Definitely I want to check this out more. I don't know that there's much to read right now, but definitely a lot to go into. A guide of how to... Wow. This is quite a vast book, quite an extensive book. Well, I can look at some of my notes of things that I've been... that I have ready to do videos for, and some of the kind of topics that came up. I'm always capturing little bits and pieces. You know, if I hear a talk from someone, I'm not trying to copy anything they've said or imitate them. But if something catches my attention, I'll take a note of it. Oh, thank you, Pockets. Appreciate it. So having seen so many great talks at the retreat, I took a lot of notes from some of the different things different speakers have said. And I guess I can just share a few of those. So here was one that I really liked. I'm going to make sure I wrote this down, actually. Okay, creative versus mechanical tasks. Martin Grassinger, what a cool guy. Martin is just so sweet. He's a two of hearts in the cards of the Magi. And he's so sincere and just such a loving person, like most hearts. Talking about how much he loves his daughter and things like that, and very, very vulnerable and very honest and open. I mean, he would say things. I remember towards the end of his talk, he said something like, if I could do a little impression of him, I've been in human design for 30 years, and I looked at my life and thought, I have 30 more years ahead of me, and I don't know that I want to do the same in the next 30 years I did before, but I don't know what else to do. So I thought, I don't know what to do. And it's been 2 years. And then he just looks around at people and like, that's it. That's his point. And I'm like, bravo. Like, bravo for being honest and vulnerable and not trying to pretend that we always know what to do in life and not trying to always pretend that because I'm the expert in human design that I'm going to, none of it. He, I mean, is like the most honest, vulnerable, just truly loving, caring person. And it was so nice to see a generator who's really living his satisfaction and so in touch with it that he's not embarrassed or ashamed of what really satisfies him. And there were so many times where I would just ask him something. He's a very quiet guy. You know, he's an undefined throat and very quiet. I guess maybe I can learn a thing or two from that. But, you know, I think there are other aspects of how much an undefined throat is going to communicate or not, like profile and other things. But in any case, he's a very quiet guy. And I would say, so Martin, can we get lunch here? What is this place? He goes, do they have lamb? And I'd say, oh, let me check. Then I would say, oh yeah, they have lamb. He goes, well, let's go. Like he would be so excited all of a sudden, so animated, and yeah, you know, like I could see this the sacral response just take over his body of like he just is so excited to eat lamb that day, you know. And he loved sweets. Doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, you know, very, very wholesome. But anyway, he had so many wonderful, wonderful, deep things to say that I felt like I was kind of like finding these gems in what he would say, because he would be very slow to start talking, and then he would sometimes just ramble for hours. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but just he wouldn't necessarily hit a point. He would just be very comfortable in this space of no point. Or he would say something that maybe he understood the point, but then other people didn't really understand. Like he said, like a number of times he would say like, Ra told me to look at the biology, and I did. And I came back and showed him. And then Ra said, Martin, you have the keys, but I have the locks. And he loved this little thing that he told again and again. And it's kind of like, I still don't know what it means, you know? But in the midst of it, he was sharing so many, it was like, what was so nice was that he wasn't so concerned with presenting what he said in a way that was filtered to make him look smart or because he cared so much about how he appeared or anything. He was just like very concerned with just sharing his truth. I just got such an authenticity and honesty from him and his own views. And sometimes his views were pretty different from quote unquote orthodox views. Yeah. And so anyway, one of the things that he said that I really liked, and there were so many of them, I'm still like remembering them. It's almost like he would just talk and it would go in so many different directions. And then later something would come through and I would like remember something he said and it would really stick. And he would say something so profound and then sort of just move on and be talking about something else. But one of the things that he said that I really liked, he'd asked Richard, you know, what is the term for when the water comes in and out? In German, it's like Ebben and Flüven or something, you know, and then he's like, oh, it's ebb and flow. And he said, yes, okay, this, perfect. And he talked about the sacral center, and he said how the sacral has this ebb and flow. And, you know, okay. And then he said, but more than that, the sacral of all the centers, and I don't want to say it the wrong way, but he seemed to say it was like the most binary, because everything has a binary, obviously, solar plexus, up wave, down wave, you know, and so on. But he kind of said it was like this movement, and I was kind of like, okay, this makes sense. Like the sacral's a binary. It's like or it's like open or closed, available or not. But he didn't mean that. He actually said the binary moves between the creative and the mechanical, and every generator learns And actually every type, regardless of type, learns, because this sort of is a universal that's universalized out of how the sacral works, that you can only do a creative task so long until you lose the creative juice and you have to like do the dishes or organize your sock drawer or do your taxes or answer your emails or do some, mechanical task. Clean the house, hygiene, any of these things. And then you can only do that so long before you need the creative. And there's this order of operations where sometimes you can't stand to scrub the floor until you've done something creative, like write a poem. And other times you can't stand to do the poem until you've scrubbed the floor. And I just loved this because I've been talking about this for years. I've been calling it order of operations and closing the loops and saying for the generator, everything is about order of operations and what comes first and what comes later. And I just loved that he was talking about saying, like, some mornings you wake up and you need to do something creative before you can do your other work. So you need to go into the creative space. And then once you've created, now you're ready to do the work. But similarly, when you're doing the creative work, don't overdo it. It reminds me of something my good friend, who's a great writer, Augustina Evans, said, which was some of her writing advice. She used to teach creative writing, and she would say that some of the best advice she ever received from her creative writing teacher is when you're working on a story, always park uphill. So if you're writing a scene and you're so excited about what happens next, stop. And the next day, start again, because you have the excitement of knowing what the next thing is. And then you kind of build the momentum and get through that. And then you get to the part where you're excited about what happens again, and you stop again. Hey there, Joe. Good to see you. Good to see you. And you're muted.
I took
Yeah.
over.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm great, man. How have you been?
I'm okay. Have you been listening this whole time? Have you guys been?
Yes, actually.
Oh my God. This is like, you're part of the marathon with me.
Yeah, you do a very good job of talking.
Thank you. Well,
I
I
got
do
to live
2
with
hours.
you on and off for 3 weeks, so I know.
Yeah.
We're still exhausted. I'm so tired.
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling it too. I'm pretty tired too. So
Yeah. Keep at it, man.
well, did you have any? I mean, now that I got you here, did you have any favorite moments with Martin? Did I do a good job describing him?
Martin. Yeah, Martin. Wow. You know what I liked about Martin? And he just didn't talk at all unless he wanted to. But when he did, boy, he was like a waterfall of knowledge and information. And if you happened to be around when he was in the mood, it was great. And
Exactly.
he's really good at table tennis.
Yeah, he was so good at table tennis. I loved the moment of him and Richard Beaumont. Well, you played against both of them as well.
Yes, Richard's really good.
Yeah.
His nickname is The Wall.
Because he's a wall.
Yeah, he just responds the whole time, and you can't get it past him. So, and I consider myself to be a pretty decent player. So
I loved when he was playing with Martin and the ball kept going in the swimming pool, and Martin, who's very tall and lanky, would be getting it out, and then Richard would say, "Use your long arms, Martin. Use your long arms."
Yeah.
Like, it is such a...
I still need to send you that video of his bare feet.
Oh my God. Yeah, I got a couple. Yeah, that was another favorite moment for the behind the scenes bloopers. We had to get a shot of, or they had to get a shot of Martin and Richard walking. And then Giacomo, the director of photography, is kind of like, because Martin doesn't like to wear shoes. So he's like, and Martin, where are your shoes, Martin? And then Martin's looking around for his shoes because I had moved them because I was helping out, on location trying to get him out of the shot or something. So he's looking around for his shoes. It's a really cute little moment. I love that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I texted him a picture of the three of us in front of the cave.
Oh, she said she sent you a picture, just so you know.
Oh, good.
I texted it of the three of us in front of the...
Well, I'm glad that you're on just incidentally with Nancy here as well, because, I did check and the tickets went up like quite a bit, which made me really sad. But in case you end up finding really cheap tickets to New Zealand, this is Nancy. This is the Nancy, who's the reason I'm going to New Zealand. even though she sadly won't be there this time. But the first of many visits to New Zealand, and I have a little more updates and progress on that as well. I'm going to visit. I'm going to visit Ramon. So I'm going to be there. I'm going to be in Auckland for 10 days. Then I'm going to visit Ramon after that. But it's the first 10 days.
I like Ramon. Such a nice guy.
Yeah. So
he's
anyway,
a great hugger.
Oh my God, yeah, he's a big teddy bear. He's great.
Yes, he is.
I had a good chat.
I'll let you get back to your storytelling.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good to see you guys. Well, actually, I was trying to think of. Oh yeah, I was just talking to Martin. Okay, yeah. So I'll just tell a few more stories about the folks there and the things I liked. So what I liked from Martin was just his understanding of the sacral availability of being this binary, and it wasn't the binary between yes and no. It was the binary between yes to the creative and yes to the mechanical. And so it was kind of like a nice reframe, because usually we think of the sacral as yes or no. It's like, yes, I'll do this, no, I won't. But he was basically saying it's always yes to something. It's just either yes to let's do something that requires this creative effort, or it's yes to something that is like a mechanical, automatic, like doing the dishes or picking up or whatever, and you eventually get burned out from one or the other. If you just keep doing the creative and then you don't park uphill, quote unquote, then you like write all the stuff you're excited about. The next day you're staring at the blank page and you can't write a single word and you get writer's block. Right? And so it's like this funny thing where you've exhausted the creative juices. So it's really understanding that the creative juices are replenished through the sort of mundane tasks, and you have to kind of alternate between the two. I really liked that. I mean, it was kind of a deep wisdom of the sacral. I still have a little cough. I haven't quite got rid of it, but mostly.
Did you ever do a sacral session with anyone?
I have in the past, not during the event there, no.
Oh, I did one with Ben. It was pretty intense.
Oh my God. I bet. Yeah, what was it?
Because he's intense.
Yeah, he's very intense.
It took about 5 minutes to get prepared for it. A lot of noise making. And then we just went into it. Travis, he invited Travis to join, but Travis didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah. Well, I really liked what I heard from what you'd said is when they'd had their fight, and I don't think it's hopefully not too personal to share, that you just said like, hey, Ben, can I ask you a question? And he was like, uh-huh. And then you said, if I'm not getting it wrong, did Travis hurt your feelings? And he went, uh-huh. And it's like, do you want to hurt Travis? He's like, uh-uh. And it was like this really amazing de-escalation. And I realized from just hearing that little story how much the yes or no can de-escalate. And then thinking back to my argument, I don't know how much Jonah's confessional hour we'll go into here, but I had a little argument, and part of it was the other person asking me, why would you say that? But why would you say that to this person? But why would you do that? And like again and again, like repeating this, why would you? And that's not a yes or no question. And I realized when somebody comes at me demanding, why would you do that? That's like an escalation for me that like makes me more and more stressed out. I want to be like, I don't know, like leave me alone, but it's just like sort of like this escalation, but then asking like, are you sad right now? Uh-huh. Are you defensive? Are you feeling defensive? Uh-huh. Are you feeling hurt? Uh-huh. Like that kind of thing. Do you want some ice cream? Uh-huh. I want some ice cream, like that kind of thing is like so powerful to cut through the stress when you're in a stressful situation. So I just wanted to say how cool that was, hearing how you sort of de-escalated a very stressful situation with yes or no questions. Like that is like immediately I think we generators feel respected when somebody does that. Like, can I ask you a question? Like that's like so much respect.
Yes. They give us the permission of it.
Yeah, I love that. It's like, no, literally, like it puts us back in the feeling or the sense that we have the power to give permission or not, and we're being, our energy is being respected, and we're not like, why would you do that? Why, tell me why. It's like, no, like that's not no, please no.
Yeah.
So I still don't know why. I mean, why does anyone do anything, right? I mean, I don't know. Well, I think we all navigated a lot of difficult situations. Anytime you're at an event that has a lot of emotional content and people going through transformational work. It has its own alchemy. It has its own high tension. Then being on a film set, oh my God, that's like a pressure cooker and a half. All the stress of the long hours and all that. And it was kind of like a perfect storm of pressures coming from all direction, plus our beloved cross of tension, making sure everybody had their attention. And I think, I'm proud to say that we all handled it really, really well and navigated a lot of difficult situations and made it through the other side, having had a really amazing time. I will never forget this trip. I mean, it was wonderful. I mean, I hope to go back next year and the year again and so on, but like nothing will be like what we just experienced. So I'm glad you guys were able to jump on to this talk so we could kind of share in some of the afterglow.
So it was definitely an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Unforgettable.
Yeah.
We're paying the price now.
Can't recover. I'm still exhausted.
I'm still exhausted too. I really, but there's a saying that if you after you crash out of exhaustion, if you don't feel fully refreshed and you keep going, you're just waiting for an even bigger crash. And so really prioritize the recovery. Like I have plans to go to 10,000 waves and soak in a hot tub. I've been like watching a ton of movies. I watched like 4 movies on the way back. If you guys need any movie recommendations, I can send you a bunch of good movies to see. Like literally just prioritize like chilling, because that was full exhaustion, I think. Mental, emotional.
I got to work tomorrow and I'm not ready.
No, because if you go back before you're fully refreshed, it's just putting off an even bigger crash. Really, it is.
Yeah. Thank goodness it's only for a couple hours, so I'll be fine.
Yeah. And make sure that people just know, like, you're there to delegate.
You're in recovery mode.
Yeah.
Well, and I always love, it's probably like some cheesy Instagram quote, but I always love the quote, if you delegate tasks, you make followers. If you delegate responsibility, you create leaders. And it seems like even just like trusting people to run things, you've made a lot of leaders. And I always try to remember that. Yeah.
You said something earlier about how you could get, like flying onto the island, you could feel the energy and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I talked to you much about it, but I sure talked to her about it. I had like electricity running through my body. That's what it felt like the entire time we were in Ibiza.
Yeah.
And
you mentioned it once.
Started like almost instantly when we got there. And I talked to Richard about it quite a bit, because it would grow in certain places on the island. It would get more intense. And
absolutely,
it is a common feeling there, they say.
Yeah, no, I'm curious when you come to Taos here in New Mexico, because Taos has a really special feeling too. Not that Santa Fe doesn't, but there are these certain places that I really think if we could see the etheric energy, there's like ley lines, dragon lines, whatever you want to call them, that there are these lines of energy where it's almost like fault lines where the energy is, 1,000 times stronger than somewhere else. And Ibiza has got to be one of those places, because I sometimes it felt almost like anxiety. Like I would be like, am I having a panic attack? And it's like, no, we just went to a certain place in the island where I'm like feeling some intense thing. Like, I don't know. It was really intense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad that you were able to stay grounded through all that. And I think, the more you're able to experience that electricity flowing through you and sort of contain it in a way, or breathe it in and feel comfortable in it, it's in a way, it's like incorporating it. It's becoming, it's enlivening you. Yeah.
There was a lot of, obviously, as you know, for me, I had a lot going on. It wasn't just that,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
There's a lot of transformations happening for myself, but that was certainly more awakening of the idea of everything. And I actually, the feeling carried home with me a little bit. So it's not gone, but it was more intense on the island for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a friend who back in Seattle who would teach Qigong, and he would always laugh that after these 2-hour Qigong sessions, everyone would rush to the bathroom, and he would laugh at them like these Americans, or however it was, like they're just getting rid of all their chi. Like they can't contain it, so they have to like evacuate it even energetically. They just have to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And I really think it's almost like like there were times when I get to certain parts of the island where I would almost feel like I had to rush to the bathroom, or I would feel like my breathing changed, or like these weird biological things. And then I kind of had to relax and go, nope, it's just, there's just this energy flowing in, and it feels weird sometimes. Like it did feel, but then I think the more you're able to relax into it, you kind of get to carry it with you, like you were saying, and it becomes a part of you. And yeah, it really, wow, it really is a special place, and I kind of want to go there. We'll see, but I mean, I might start going there every year. It might just become an annual thing because. But at the same time, I also feel like I got a mega dose. Like we got mega doses of the island. Like in a way, I feel like I got like a 10-year dose. If I don't go for the next 9 years, I'll be fine. But
we're as local as you can get for not being local right now.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say is like I'm happy to go back, but I'd be more wanting to show other people around and share some of the magic with other people. I'd love to take my mom there, stuff like that. For me personally, I feel like my cup brimmeth over with like I got like so many trips in one compressed into like
you
one
embodied the whole experience for you. You didn't let a drop of time go by without experiencing everything you could. So kudos to you, man.
I think I'm in the same boat as you guys. I'm paying for it now, and I got 3 weeks to recuperate. My personality Earth is in 25.5, the line of recuperation. And, I left even though I had that great free place to stay on the North Island for the rest of the month because I knew I couldn't recuperate there. I knew that if I stayed there, I would just keep going to events and I would just keep being a part of it. And like now that I'm here, they had a big party like the first night I was here, and I was like, no, I'm not going. And people were like, what? You're not going? It's all your. I'm like, no. I've been. You know what my activities have been? Walking to the park by my house and looking at the river and then walking back to my house. That's the extent of my activities here. That, and I did go out and had a margarita yesterday, but that's about it.
That's pretty good. Our biggest activity has been cleaning the closet.
Okay. That's a good one.
On that, Jackson.
I'll let you get back.
Yeah. On that note, I think I'm just going to wrap up. I think we're all good. We usually do 4 hours. We hit about 4 hours today, and so this is what we do. But thanks for being a part of it, and I think that's a really great place to end it. And thank you, Lisita and Jimmy, tuning in, Nancy, and good to see you, Joe and Kalima. And we'll talk about New Zealand. I was bummed to see that the prices kind of jumped up, but we can keep looking.
We'll talk tomorrow.
Yeah, talk tomorrow. Either way, I'm going to see you guys when you come through Santa Fe. So I'm super excited about that. That is what I'm really looking forward to.
All right, talk to you later.
Okay, awesome. Talk to you guys soon. Okay, take care.